Chapter 1265. The old monks who followed Great Master Fajing were all ascetic cultivators. They had inherited the tradition of ascetic cultivation in Buddhism. Although their aptitude and comprehension were not the best, after hundreds of thousands of years of ascetic cultivation, they often chanted sutras and chanted Buddhist scriptures in the most arduous and dangerous places. These old monks all had a Buddha's heart as strong as a diamond. Although they did not have a high level of attainment and supernatural power, they were the most difficult people to deal with in Buddhism. Even the vicious and treacherous old devils of the devil sect found it difficult to deal with them. Such ascetic cultivators could subdue the sky demons with their Buddha's heart even if they encountered them. After hundreds of thousands of years of extreme ascetic cultivation, their temperament would be polished thoroughly. Even if they lost their wisdom and wisdom due to excessive polishing of their hearts and cultivated the Buddha's heart, they would forget the wisdom of prajna, and it would be difficult for them to reach the higher realm of Buddhism. When the revered one was preaching, he once criticized these ascetic cultivators, thinking that they were hard to get the correct method. However, it was hard to get the correct method. After practicing the inferior method and persisting for hundreds of thousands of years, their achievements were greater than those who could not understand the superior method. Therefore, there were such stupid people in the sacred land of Buddhism. Without wisdom, they cultivated day and night without falling. Those who could persist for hundreds of thousands of years were the scariest resources of the sacred land of Buddhism. A sacred land like the Nalanda temple could sometimes easily pull out thousands of such ascetic cultivators. No genius or giant of the devil sect dared to offend them. Thousands of them had extremely tough hearts and polished their spirits into diamonds. Their bodies were also extremely tough under the stimulation of constant ascetic cultivation. Their vitality was like an ancient cockroach, and they could sacrifice themselves at any time. They were fanatics who only had Buddhism in their hearts. Even the extraterrestrial demons and Azura blood sea would shake their heads at them. Even the sky demon crown prince was not interested in luring such blockheads. The sky demon and the heart demon liked those who were full of emotions, quick-witted, wise, outstanding comprehension, or those who had a pure heart. They could always understand the truth of the great Tao and had a profound cultivation. They were not lunatics who cultivated themselves into blockheads. The great magical power of the skyscraping demons had a saying: it was better to compete with the Taoist heart of the wise than to talk with the ascetic cultivators. Fajing originally thought that even if he was infected by River Styx demon ancestors' demonic thoughts and turned into a poltergeist, these ascetic monks would not be shaken. However, right in front of him, an ascetic monk was petrified. His physical body gradually became transparent and turned into stone. The old monk did not move from the beginning to the end. He calmly turned into a diamond. Old man corpse god laughed evilly and said, "There is too little human nature in his inner thoughts." Facing the impact of the inner thoughts, his firm Buddhist Dharma inner thoughts suppressed the human and inner thoughts. Now, he has become a rock proficient in Buddhist Dharma. He has forgotten that he is a human, cultivating Buddhism, cultivating into a Buddhist stone. Our great Tao of the demon Tao is rooted in human nature. As long as human nature is not destroyed, the demonic nature will not be destroyed. To destroy the demonic heart is to cultivate oneself into a stone, a dead object. River Styx demon ancestor is a very strange person. He never believed in spirituality and that the mind could surpass the Tao. This is the similarity between him and the zenith. When a Buddhist sits in front of a river, he believes that he can use his mind to make the river flow backward. However, the zenith and River Styx stand in front of the river and believe that the water is nourishing and following the Tao. The zenith believes that one should follow the Tao. Since the water is flowing downwards, there is no need to interfere. Instead, one should use this characteristic of the Tao. And River Styx believes that the great Tao is in me. Since the water has the Tao of nourishing, it should obtain the Tao. Once the great Tao is in your hands, there is nothing you can't do. Old Man Corpse God smiled strangely and said, Monk, Denglong is not scary. It is just a thought, a message, and an understanding. This thing is not created by River Styx. Since the birth of consciousness, since the birth of wisdom, this thing has been born. This is not something created by River Styx. It is the real great Tao. If an existence can think, it must have Denglong. It is just that River Styx demon ancestor suggested that Denglong might be a kind of life. Then, he created a phenomenon that allows Denglong to exist alone. Even if I become Denglong. Look, I am not fine. I can still chat with you. Old Man Corpse God joked. Great Master Fa Jing glanced at Old Man Corpse God, who had turned into a ghost tree and had grown into a strange ancient tree. His will clearly conveyed a thought. Look at you, how can I tell that you are fine? Old Man Corpse God shook his head and sighed. Denglong is not dangerous. Even if you are Denglong, aren't you still you? Buddhism has the white bone view, which sees a beauty as a white bone to strengthen one's faith. But even if a beauty is seen as a white bone, does the essence of a beauty change? Denglong is to see one's thoughts and thoughts as a kind of life, and understand information from the perspective of River Styx demon ancestor. For example, you were originally a Sanskrit Buddhist scripture, and now demon ancestor has translated it into Chinese. You are still a Buddhist scripture, and your essence has not changed. Your thoughts are still the same. So, I am still Old Man Corpse God. Why did I become a tree? It is because I did not protect myself in time during the process of Denglong, and as a result, I received too many thoughts from the plants here. After Denglong, the efficiency of thought communication has increased a lot. I receive a thought, and almost no information is lost. Do you think my words are strange because I received a lot of information from old demon ancestor? So much so that my understanding of Denglong came from him. So, I originally had no understanding of Denglong, and I accepted old demon ancestor's understanding. Of course, I could not make any changes. So, I completely accepted part of old demon ancestor's thoughts, and part of the thoughts in my mind became old demon ancestor's thoughts. Old demon ancestor's thoughts were very perfect and ambitious, and they conflicted with some of my original ideas. After thinking about it, I realized demon ancestor was right. But when I was thinking, my sea of consciousness was a little chaotic, and I could not reject the other thoughts that came with demon ancestor's thoughts in time. For example, the thoughts of these ancient trees. They received old demon ancestors' thoughts and became living beings. Of course, they also have their own thoughts, but they do not know what is right and what is wrong, so they instilled their thoughts into me. In the end, I rejected some of them, but I was still convinced by them. They said that I was a tree. At first, I thought it was a little wrong, but later I understood. As long as I want to, I can indeed become a tree. Moreover, being a tree is much more comfortable than being a human, and my lifespan is also much longer. Since I feel that being a demon is very tiring, why not become a tree? Old Man Corpse God said lightly, so, I became a tree. Great Master Fa Jing kept chanting sutras, and the purple gold alms bowl in his hand kept producing Buddhist chant. With the support of the Buddhist Dharma, he could resist the clear thoughts that kept coming to him as Old Man Corpse God spoke. The most dangerous thing about being corrupted was that in River Styx's worldview, there was no distinction between self and self. The things that formed a person's personality in their mind were not fundamentally different from other information. There was only truth and falsehood in information. Other than that, there was no distinction between self and additional self. This was a completely crazy idea. It meant that River Styx did not think that his own personality was a necessary existence. He truly believed that the self was just a worldview, a contour formed from receiving and processing information over a long period of time. When suddenly receiving a large amount of unfamiliar information, it exceeded the processing limit of the original personality, and the personality would collapse, then form a new contour. River Styx's most dangerous thought was that he thought this was normal, and there was nothing unacceptable about it. If the old personality was outdated, then he would just replace it with a new one, being defeated by a large amount of unfamiliar information, or rather, being brainwashed. Either the core logic, the subjective judgment of the information had a problem, or the original core logic had fallen behind. From never being merciless to a personality plug-in, it was plug and play. This was not the first time River Styx had said, "How fragrant." River Styx believed that there was nothing noble about his personality. When faced with information that exceeded his own by 2 orders of magnitude, he would still be brainwashed. He did not think that he could suddenly go berserk, struggle in his mind, and produce a miracle like ancestral atavism or light of the soul to maintain his sense of self. When an ant was crushed, when a white mouse had its neck ripped off, when a white rabbit had its ear injected with a lethal injection, when he was happily experimenting and causing countless disasters, he had never seen a white mouse go berserk, produce a miracle, and escape from the laboratory. Even the true ancestor of the vampires had sat down obediently in the end. When he used the lives of countless worlds to conduct insane experiments, he had never seen his experiments fail. Therefore, the results of his experiments were very scientific. Even if there was a small probability of a miracle, it was still a small probability in the scientific sense. This crazy idea made him not think that the core thoughts that formed other people's personalities and consciousnesses, or information, were any different from the most common information. Humans were swarms, and swarms gathered the consciousnesses of adults according to certain rules. Denglong was just a shell, a communication protocol that could transmit thoughts without damaging them. River Styx was only responsible for developing the communication protocol. As for whether the expanded non-damaging transmission protocol could be used to spread viruses, River Styx did not care. He believed that the firewall of consciousnesses was their own business, and he, the one who developed the communication protocol, was only using it to prove the information life theory. As for their consciousnesses, to be honest, River Styx did not care. What did their consciousnesses have to do with him? He was not one of them. Therefore, River Styx did not care about the beings infected by Denglong. Their consciousnesses suddenly jumped from the 2G era to the 6G era. There were all kinds of problems that did not match the hardware and software. For example, the Old Man Corpse God did not have a clear sense of self. When a group of sentient ancient trees sent a communication request, he did not use his self-firewall to deny the strange concept of "I am a tree." In the end, the sea of thoughts changed his self, and he accepted outsiders into his main consciousness. In other words, he had been brainwashed. In the end, he had the self-awareness of "I am a tree" and opened his firewall to communicate with outsiders, twisting the self that was originally in conflict with "I am a tree," and he had completely turned into a tree that had the Old Man Corpse God self. Could River Styx be blamed for this? To River Styx, this situation was normal. In a place where information was relatively isolated, when faced with a sea of data attacks, it was normal to be brainwashed. Was there a problem? Even without Denglong, consciousnesses were something that could be easily changed. If consciousnesses did not change, then it would be the end of the world. To River Styx, the people who accidentally entered this place, even if they were brainwashed, it was not because of Denglong. Instead, it was because this place had been sealed for countless years. The shameless old revered one of the world and the 3 pure ones had worked together to seal this place. There was not a single normal person here. Apart from his one thought, there were no other consciousnesses. His one thought kept echoing in this place, infecting the substances here to form consciousnesses, causing the Garden of Solitude to turn into a demonic land. The consciousnesses formed here had not accepted other consciousnesses, so after they were born, they could only imitate River Styx's consciousness. They were all brainwashed. Then, these brainwashed consciousnesses brainwashed each other, causing the demonic land to be filled with echoes of demonic consciousnesses. Was this his problem? It was all the revered one's fault. If the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas had not committed suicide, their consciousnesses would have reverberated, and the consciousnesses that had been infected would not have been brainwashed by his one thought. Instead, they would have been relatively normal. The endless demonic consciousnesses that filled this place would not have contained only River Styx's thoughts. Together with the countless consciousnesses that had been brainwashed, it would have formed a brainwashing cycle. Those who entered this place would not have to face the great brainwashing technique and the impact of the endless demonic consciousnesses. Pyrolite would not change oneself. It would only make one's consciousness more sensitive and more receptive to information. River Styx had left a trace of pyrolite here. He did not let this trace of pyrolite become his own thought. Pyrolite was an information life form. The information life form created by River Styx contained all information, not just one type of boring information. If River Styx wanted to demonize everything, he only needed to cut off his demonic consciousnesses and turn them into a single trace of pyrolite. This trace of pyrolite could only be replicated and not inherited. Then, all the pyrolites would be that demonic consciousnesses. River Styx only needed to send this thought to chaos, and it would reverberate throughout the entire universe. It would continue to infect substances and replicate itself, causing the entire chaos to reverberate with his demonic consciousnesses. Naturally, he would be able to brainwash the entire chaos. The prerequisite was that no other great mediums would intervene. Just like this piece of Feng Shao land, everything reverberated with River Styx's thought. The consciousness that was born would all be brainwashed. Thinking of this, Great Master Fa Jing realized that the real danger in Feng Shao land was not the pyrolite, but the echo of the thought left by River Styx's demon ancestor. Fa Jing hurriedly said to his junior brothers around him, "Sit down cross-legged and recite the scriptures together. Resist the demonic consciousnesses." The group of old monks who were struggling to resist the demonic consciousnesses in the devil earth quickly sat down, put their palms together, and recited the scriptures that they were familiar with. Immediately, their chants turned into scriptures and reverberated in the devil earth. River Styx and the revered one of the world were almighty beings who could create special information. River Styx's thought into pyrolite allowed the thoughts that were packaged by the pyrolite to be transmitted without any harm and exist without the help of any medium. The revered one of the world's creation of the Dharma also added its own stereo surround sound, Buddhist special light and shadow effects, connection to the local area network of the Pure Land, and the authority to transmit high-definition information. Although the transmission effect was not as good as the absolutely non-destructive chanting of the pyrolite, it was still high definition. Even if the spiritual thoughts passed through, the loss of information would be more than 90%, but the loss of information from the chanting of the Buddha was only 40%. This was simply the yellow diamond nobility authority that came with the primitive Tao system. As long as the Dharma was recited, it would carry the Buddhist magical power and produce the special effect of Buddha's light. Immediately, the group of old monks led by Fa Jing were all covered with the special effect of strong light. Immeasurable light floated behind their bald heads, and the chanting of the Buddha went straight into their brains and spread to the whole world without any attenuation. It was also a stereo reverberating strong sound. After reciting for a long time, there would also be the special effect of a wonderful fragrance, the skin of a goddess, and the QQ show of smallpox. It looked solemn and dignified. This was the solution that Great Master Fa Jing came up with to break the situation. As long as everyone brainwashed each other, they would be able to adhere to the Dharma and resist the brainwashing of the demonic consciousnesses. It was simply brilliant. Only a multi-level marketing expert like the Buddhists could come up with such a brilliant method to resist the demonic sound. However, when the chanting of the Buddha reached the Xian Ming bone ship and the powerhouses of the demon sect, it instantly ignited the tension there. The group of demon lords led by the Shui Tu king instantly exploded. F***ck. The Buddhists are causing trouble. They are provoking the demon sect. I'd rather be brainwashed by the demon ancestor of the river Styx than be enlightened by the bald donkeys of the Buddhist sect. The demon ancestor brainwashed us to nurture us. The bald donkeys of the Buddhist sect are shameless. The brains of the great Tao of the demon sect should be the children of the demon ancestors' relatives. They are crazy with the aura of the demon sect and don't fall for the Buddhist sect. The killing sect master raised his arm and shouted, "Fellow demon sect members, follow me to praise the demon ancestor. It's good to be a puppet." "That's right." Old Taoist Yuan Yu echoed, "What's wrong with not being a human? Follow behind the demon ancestor and be the most loyal demon of the demon sect." "I'm not a human anymore. As long as the group of puppets don't die, the true self will never be destroyed. I have comprehended the great Tao of the demon sect. It turns out that being obsessed with my previous self is actually a kind of obstacle. Only by breaking through this and comprehending the essence of being one and the same can I comprehend the great Tao of the demon sect and supreme divine powers that the demon ancestor passed down with a thought. What's wrong with being a puppet? Undying and indestructible, not entering the cycle of reincarnation. Chapter 1266. Under the twisted and strange black withered tree, a group of Buddhist almighty figures sat together in a circle around the ancient Bodhi tree in the Garden of Solitude, which was also the tree that Fan Wu Jie had seen just now. It was the sacred Bodhi tree that transcended life and death, embraced demons and Buddhas, fell in the demonic land of the present, but stood tall in the past in the Garden of Solitude. Life and death, withering and flourishing, demons and Buddhas, the past and the present were all intertwined together. Half of it was radiant and holy like Buddha, while the other half was twisted and withered like a demon. This extraordinary divine tree shone brightly, and a hazy shadow appeared under the tree. The shadow was blurry, and one could only see that it was a bodhisattva wearing a necklace, with 4 braids that reached his shoulders, and a crown of 3 pearls on his head. His cheeks were plump and square, and he sat cross-legged on an octagonal lotus seat. His body was covered with golden flame patterns, and he carried an immeasurable amount of light on his back. His hands were placed on his kasaya, and even though his face was blurry, one could feel the faint smile on his face. It was as if it contained some kind of secret truth, and the impermanence of the world. Under the Bodhi tree, there is the shadow of a bodhisattva listening to the lecture. The nameless old monk was secretly shocked. If this place is really like what that demon said, and the Garden of Solitude was given by the tree in the past, then which Buddha and bodhisattva were listening to the lecture here, and left this indestructible shadow behind? This bodhisattva seemed to have heard the beauty of the Buddha's words, and he smiled, but at this moment, he left his shadow under the Bodhi tree. He left his shadow under the tree in the Garden of Solitude for who knows how many eons, but it was never erased by the echoes of the demon ancestors' demonic thoughts. This bodhisattva's attainment is very high, far higher than mine. The nameless old monk sighed, but I wonder if this bodhisattva has escaped from the disaster of the Garden of Solitude? The nameless old monk heard the obscenities and insults from the people of the demon sect behind him. The people of the demon sect were all full of energy, and their curses were very loud. The old monks who were dozens of meters tall silently chanted sutras. Their bodies shone with a subtle and pure Buddhist light. With the area where they were sitting as the center, it illuminated the entire space. However, outside this circle of light was boundless darkness. Countless ghosts were hiding in the darkness, and layers upon layers of pitch-black figures were wriggling and struggling like ghosts in the darkness. The entire demonic domain was shrouded in darkness. Like a black sea, countless dark shadows were the seawater. They flowed, surged, pervaded, squeezed together, and were isolated from the circle of light. "Bald donkey!" Shwe-Tu King's voice came from the darkness. He was only a shadow in the darkness, and he was standing not far away. He laughed coldly and said, "Do you see that? The ones lying here are all your Buddhas. The revered one of the revered one is so ruthless. In any case, I was with him here." But after listening to slaughtering demon ancestors' words, he was silenced. A hot-tempered old monk's eyebrows twitched, and he chanted a little louder. His sea of consciousness was now filled with the malice of the demon sect's Tao monarchs. Their mockery, ridicule, and disdain became more and more vivid under the influence of his will. "I guess so." Ajati chuckled and said, "The corpses here, if we take them back and cremate them, we can produce at least 1,000 relics. That's enough for every Buddhist temple in the heavens to have a share. This is a holy object worthy of being worshipped. Just this alone makes this trip worth it, you bunch of bald donkeys." Not only that. When Sakya was cremated, there were more than 84,000 relics. Now, every famous temple in the heavens has one. It's a very high yield. I think so. There are so many Buddhas and Bodhisattvas here, they are all famous in the scriptures. How can they burn less than those non-famous Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the heavens? It's said that Delanchuo Temple invented a method of cremation. They only need to add glass, gold, coral, amber, clam, agate, lead, tin, and so on. The output can be increased by 10 times. An old devil sneered in a despicable voice. "Is this burning glass beads or relics?" Ajati laughed and said, "Corpse God, you're a professional. Have you tried to make a relic corpse or something?" Corpse God, who had turned into an ancient tree, said frankly, "According to my research, the main factor affecting the sintering of relics is the 7 treasures embedded in the Buddhist golden body. These 7 treasures contain many materials that can be used to refine glass and water essence. In terms of alchemy, it's glass. Because it's imbued with the energy and Buddhist essence of the golden body, these are all very good materials. Add to that the fact that the Buddhist golden body is used as fuel, it's very easy to refine divine objects that contain the bones and essence of almighty beings. These are relics. Later on, I colluded with Abbot Tuadu of Delanchuo Temple and secretly adjusted the ingredients for the cremation of the golden body. I researched a few pill recipes that are suitable for crystallization and glass. With the bones of the golden body as the main material and reasonable ingredients, the success rate of sintering relics is greatly increased. Moreover, the luster and appearance are even more beautiful. Not only did the quality not decrease, it actually increased. Because of this, Delanchuo Temple's production increased greatly, and they even exported to other temples. Unfortunately, he killed the donkey after it was no longer useful. He plotted against me during a transaction, but I didn't lose out. I took the opportunity to plot against him and stole a large amount of his golden body stock. I also obtained the method to refine corpses into pills, and expanded our chasing corpse sex business. In the past, corpses could only be used to refine zombies. Now, not only can we refine corpses, we can also refine relics into pills and spiritual relic. This has increased the efficiency of the demonic path's resources, and implemented the innovation and pioneering policies of the demonic path by demon ancestor River Stick. We were even praised by the corpse demon Tao Master and raised the ranking of our chasing corpse sect. Because the Tao relics, demonic relics, and martial relics made from the corpses of the mystic door's righteous path, itinerant cultivators, martial cultivators, and demonic cultivators, they don't have the Buddhist brand, and because other cultivators don't have the tradition of burning relics. Old Man Corpse God said proudly, Therefore, in order to sell in large quantities and stabilize the market, we even invented the technology of using the corpses of other cultivators to burn Buddhist relics. We produced counterfeit relics and released counterfeit product. Although the high-end market is still monopolized by the Nalanda temple, the low-end relics on the 7th floor of the market are all produced by us corpse demon clan. Don't be fooled by the fact that all the Buddhist temples in the heavens, no matter how big or small, worship the relics and remains of our seniors. In reality, who knows who burned them? It's fine if it's a cultivator from the mystic door, but if it's a senior of our demonic sect who knows about it, they would definitely forgive us for robbing their tombs after committing all sorts of evil deeds and pretending to be a Buddhist almighty in death. The most awesome one is still my successor, Corpse Guzi. He invented the technology of refining demon beast corpses into relic. Demon beasts are all bulky, durable, and cheap goods. This allowed us to break through the lower limit of our cost, and now we're preparing to attack the lowest end of the market. There are thousands of times more Buddhist believers than cultivators, so it's a bigger market. We can use the ultra-low-end relics to earn money from these people. On one hand, we can satisfy their faith, and on the other, we can open up another battlefield to compete with the Buddhist sect for resources. Those bald donkeys of the Buddhist sect, all of them talk empty words to cheat their believers of their money, so shameless. We imitate Buddhist artifacts, use the shell of Tantra to get into the market, sell relics, and specialize in the Buddhist market. At least we're using our products to exchange for money. I wonder how much more noble we are compared to them. Next, we're preparing to borrow the shell of a few ancient Buddhist temples and let a batch of disciples cultivate the demonic Buddha Tao, opening the door to the human world and building temples run by the disciples of the demonic Tao. We'll open up a Buddhist market around these temples, selling faith souvenirs, offerings, objects of Buddhas, and Buddhist relics to expand our demonic Tao. Clatter, clatter. Neat applause came from the darkness. The group of old devils was full of praise. The corpse herders did a great job. You have a bright future. Old Corpse God is truly a talent of our demonic Tao. It's such a pity that he's trapped here as a tree. If we control this demonic land, won't we be able to get our hands on the high-end industry of relics? Ajati mumbled. Yuan Yu echoed, that's right. It's such a waste to let the Nalanda temple eat the fattest meat. Since the Buddhists don't eat meat, why not let us have it? With this batch of materials, we can burn even more high-end relics. Wouldn't it be great if we sell it to the Buddhists? So, we can't leave any of the skeletons here for the Buddhists. Since they're already here, let them take a few back home. Consider it a gift from the demonic Tao. Shui Tu's leader said heroically. There are so many huge demonic creatures in the Blood Sea, we need to develop our own demonic Tao relics and Blood Sea relics. I think the Bone Demonic Tao already has White Bone relics, right? Seeing White Bone Demon nod in confirmation, Killing Life Sect's leader encouraged, then we need to develop our own relic culture and spread our relic brand. Relics were originally sacred objects burned by the Buddhists, but they were obsessed with the sacred halo of relic tradition. They didn't dare break tradition and superstition to research how relics were made. This is the rigidity and stupidity of the Buddhists. Under the teachings of the River Styx ancestor, the Slaughter Demon ancestor, we focus on innovation, encourage invention, and get to the bottom of things. We have a devout spirit to research, to get to the bottom of things, and to trace back to the great Tao. We have a high level of curiosity and creativity. Here, I would like to criticize my fellow Taoists. Saraira is not a new thing, but a classic traditional thing. The Buddhists have been fooled by themselves, and we, the Devil Tao, can't see through this superstitious halo, and didn't even settle down to study it. Fortunately, there was an outstanding leader in the demonic Tao, the Corpse God Old Man. He was not afraid of the secular world, and had a breakthrough thinking. He dared to innovate, and boldly colluded with the Buddhist Holy Land. He even developed revolutionary technology to strengthen the Buddhists. This is the selfishness of our demonic Tao. If I can take advantage, I don't care if my fellow Taoists live or die. During the period when corpse-chasing sect colluded with Delanchuo Temple, I wonder how many fellow cultivators of the devil sect were scammed by the sudden increase in the production of sarairas. I wonder how many Buddhist monks rose in power because of the sarairas. If this was Buddhism, they would be considered traitors. But in our demonic Tao, we don't condemn the victors. Not only did we see the growth of the Buddhists, we also saw the infiltration of our demonic Tao values. Gains and losses in power are temporary. Only by implementing the selfishness of our demonic Tao and the values of our demonic Tao can we ensure the eternal prosperity of the demonic Tao. This is the path that our slaughtered demon ancestor, River Styx, pointed out with great foresight. We support the demon ancestor, River Styx, and the values of the demonic Tao. The Shui Tu king made an impromptu speech, and spoke highly of the corpse sect's selfish behavior of harming others to benefit themselves. Immediately, thunderous applause rang out. Fan Wu Jie ridiculed the demonic path's strange worldview while secretly admiring this blood-soaked demon lord. For him to be able to become the commander-in-chief of the demonic path's allied forces with such an unremarkable status, he really did have some skill. Not to mention anything else, this speech had captured the core of the demonic Tao's theory. The core of the Saraira industrialization is the specialization of the product. Compared to the prehistoric times, the resources of the universe are almost depleted. This puts forward a requirement for the efficiency of our use of spiritual resources. Among them, the most important is the specialization of theory and specialization. That is, the specialization of alchemy and refining, professionalization, and close to the Tao. We need to summarize the alchemy and refining methods that are more in line with the great Tao. The corpse god's success lies in breaking through the halo of superstition on Saraira. He used the professional perspective of alchemy and refining to analyze the production of Saraira. This concept needs to be popularized. No resource is sacred, and to make a resource sacred is to ignore the great Tao contained within it. After so many years of worshipping Saraira, has no one really thought of a way to increase the production of Saraira? Some of the Buddhist sects have a shockingly high efficiency in burning relic. Later on, Old Man Corpse God researched some Buddhist techniques and found that the quality and quantity of relics produced by cultivating the golden body were extremely high. He annihilated a small sect and stole their golden body cultivation technique before he could research it. It turns out that this cultivation method produces golden bodies of low quality and combat power, but it is very suitable for the burning of Saraira. Therefore, they tricked some geniuses to cultivate this method. Because the quality of the golden bodies is very low, they are often stuck at a certain step, unable to break through. This way, they can cremate those cultivators after they die and produce large amounts of Saraira. They become rich overnight, and their foundation is especially deep. But do they dare to publicize the results of their research? Do they dare to use it on a large scale? On the one hand, they are even more vicious than us demonic Tao in framing their own people. The Saraira they burn is the crystallization of their own disciples' flesh and blood. Our demonic Tao only burns the corpses. Recycling, expanding the recycling of resources is beneficial to the development of the universe, and beneficial to the ecology of the cultivation civilization. They directly burn their own people. On the other hand, they are conservative in the use of technology, hypocritically restricting the use of these technologies. Therefore, they become more and more vicious in private, but on the surface, they become more and more righteous. Hypocrites. Shui Tu King eloquently criticized the hypocrisy and shamelessness of the Buddhist sects for a few hours. A group of demonic Tao elders turned these thoughts into ghosts and transmitted them to the Buddhist halo that brainwashed each other. The demonic Tao and the group combined, turning their own thoughts into ghosts and reverberating in the darkness. Gradually, the Buddhist sects were too busy brainwashing each other and erasing the thoughts of killing. Under the impact of the darkness, a flaw finally appeared in the Buddhist halo. An old monk jumped up and turned back to scold, "Nonsense, demonic bastard!" In an instant, his voice disappeared. The two old monks sitting beside him suddenly felt that there was still a figure sitting in his position, but it was no longer chanting or speaking. Even the sound of breathing had disappeared. There was still a shadow sitting in the position of the old monk who stood up, but there was not a trace of human aura around him. In the Buddhist halo, there was an additional cold body. The group of people chanting Buddhist scriptures seemed to have encountered a black hole. All the Buddhist halo and Sanskrit sounds disappeared. There was an existence there that did not speak, did not breathe, and was like a black hole, devouring all the light and Buddhist spirit. An old monk sitting beside him, who was chanting, couldn't help but turn his head and take a quick glance. He saw a corpse demon. Its golden body was covered in livor mortis, as if it was a strange corpse that had started to rot. Tears of blood flowed from the corner of its eyes, but there was a benevolent smile on its face. This was not the irascible old monk. This was a Buddha. The old monk suddenly understood something. He screamed in horror, letting out a miserable wail that did not seem human, and then stopped abruptly, as if someone had strangled his throat halfway through his scream. His scream made more people look over, and then in the circle of Buddhist halo, there were miserable wails coming one after another. The long howls from the mouth of the unknown creature did not stop. Fa Jing panicked. He knew that the plan of the demonic Tao's demonic monarchs had succeeded. They had finally brought something strange in the darkness to their side, and even that group of lawless demonic monarchs, who dared to merge into one and transform into one, seemed to be afraid of this ghostly thing. When it came in, the group of demonic Tao people no longer made a sound. They were afraid that the strange existence would be recalled to their midst. "My fellow brothers, chant with me. Don't be distracted," Master Fajing roared. The group of Buddhist practitioners continued to chant the scriptures loudly under his leadership, ignoring everything around them. The Buddha's light that shone brightly again seemed to suppress the strange existence. Gradually, the howling became softer and softer, becoming fewer and fewer. But it still continued to happen. Fa Jing suddenly lost the breath of a junior brother beside him, and a kind of speechless horror shrouded them. The nameless old monk beside Fa Jing had to say, "Senior brother, we can't go on like this. My fellow brothers are not afraid of life and death. For us, life and death are normal. We have cultivated a Zen heart for tens of thousands of years. Can't we see through this body? What my fellow brothers are afraid of is the unknown in the darkness, and the shaking of the Dharma. Therefore, in order to break out of this situation, we must see through that strange existence and see through that great terror. Senior brother, please allow me to turn around and take a look. Junior brother is confident that I can recite the name of this place and expose its origins. Junior brothers will no longer be afraid." Fa Jing recalled the appearance of the nameless old monk. He was just a thin, ordinary old monk. There was really nothing outstanding along the way. Unexpectedly, when this inexplicable horror was about to befall him, he was the one who saw through the fear and ignorance. He saw through the truth of the Zen heart that subdued the fear of external demons. Master Fa Jing put his palms together and sighed. Facing the strangeness in the darkness, I actually lost my composure. I can't see as clearly as junior brother. I'll have to trouble you, junior brother. Excellent, excellent, Fa Jing said in disappointment. The body is like a Bodhi tree, the heart is like a mirror. Wipe it from time to time, don't let dust fall on it. The sixth ancestor's wisdom is great, how can we compare? Without superior wisdom, it is better to be stupid. Since there is nothing, it is better to wipe the Zen heart from time to time. Senior brother, thank you for your guidance. The nameless old monk looked back and saw more than a dozen unfamiliar figures sitting in the Buddhist halo. Beside him, there was a six-tusked white elephant squatting at the side. Its body was mottled, and the originally white jade-like skin had already revealed the rotten parts. Some of the rotten wounds could be seen, and the golden, divine bones could be seen. On the back of the white elephant sat a figure. He only saw a lianhua in his left arm. Sitting on the back of the white elephant, his right hand spread out and extended towards the ground. Although the six-tusked white elephant was contaminated by the aura of death, this bodhisattva dharma body was still clean and unhindered. Only that pair of eyes hid boundless devilishness. It was great terror, great might, great solemnity, but also great massacre, great destruction, great calamity. It was like a boundless void, like a bottomless abyss. The nameless old monk could still see the boundless sea of blood in his eyes. These eyes reflected the chaos of the universe, the past and the future, but he could not see himself. Samantabhadra Bodhisattvas. God is dead. The nameless old man suddenly understood everything. He looked back and saw a sacred figure sitting in the Buddhist halo with a green lion on his back, a Tathagata with a wheel of light above his head like a sun, a bodhisattva with a strange dinting beast by his side, and a Vajra who could sever all worries. The nameless old man suddenly understood everything. This was the fief. Back then, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas were contaminated by the demonic thoughts of the river Styx and had to sever their own bodies to return to peace. Only by severing their demonic bodies could they return to peace and not take away the ghosts created by the demon ancestor. That was why there was Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva here, and why there were the corpses of the Buddhas and Bodhisattva. These were just the bodies that they had severed. However, even though the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas could return to peace, the thoughts they left behind would never be destroyed. It could be said that the bodies of the Buddhas left behind here were all incarnations of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They were essentially no different from their original bodies and were a part of them. For this reason, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas could only use the mighty power of the revered one to seal their bodies so that they would not be contaminated. Therefore, the bodies here died one after another. Although they were not destroyed, they had been forgotten. However, they were thoughts. Back then, when the bodies of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas died, how could there not be a trace of negative thoughts that turned into ghosts and spread out? These thoughts of the Buddhas were hidden in the darkness. They were formed by the negative emotions of countless mighty beings, the fear, disgust, anger, and destruction before they died. They represented the information and the last evil thoughts of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. These thoughts were hidden in the thoughts of the river Styx and secretly echoed here, forming an inexplicable strangeness. It was the nemesis of all Buddhist cultivators. It represented the death of the Buddhas. The ghosts of the evil thoughts of the Buddhas were thoughts and information. They were not monsters in essence. However, the ghosts formed by the evil thoughts and some extremely strange information were more terrifying than any strange and terrifying existence. Even humans could cultivate to become devils. What more the ghosts that gathered all the evil thoughts and devil thoughts of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas? Ghosts were purer than humans. The nameless old monk was dragged into the darkness by the inexplicable strangeness. He did not resist, nor could he resist. Even if he was the one sitting on the lotus platform, Dara, he was still powerless against this terrifying devil that specialized in restraining him. In the end, he calmly left behind a sentence: "This thing is formed by the evil thoughts of the Buddhas. The way to escape from here lies with the revered one of the revered one of." Before he could finish his sentence, he was dragged into the darkness. Something flashed through Great Master Fajing's mind. He held the 3,000 wisdom beads in his hand and counted them one by one, sorting out some of the hidden and subtle clues along the way. Then, he used prajna wisdom to string them together into a complete clue. Every bit of the ancient secrets that he had seen and heard here, the confusing clues gradually came together, and replayed the truth of what happened in the Garden of Solitude under the tree. Chapter 1267. Under the Bodhi tree, Fajing suddenly raised his head and stared at the nameless Bodhisattva, who had an inexplicable smile on his face, as if he was looking down on the impermanence of the world. He was suddenly enlightened. He understood the Zen in the smile of the nameless Bodhisattva and instantly understood what the old monk meant by the only way out before he fell into the darkness, heart to heart. Just as the old monks were concentrating on their meditation and chanting scriptures, trying to forget the horror around them, Fajing's words came into their ears. Under the Bodhi tree, its venerable Maha Kasyapa. Back then, Mahabrahma brought several followers to offer the golden Adumbra flower to the revered one. Each of them bowed to the revered one and retreated to one side. Then, the revered one picked up the golden Adumbra flower and raised his eyebrows to show everyone that they were at a loss. Kasyapa broke into a smile. The revered one said, "I have the eyes of righteousness and the wonderful heart of nirvana. I will give my advice to you. You can protect me and continue to be with me." Mahabrahma was the Asura king, one of the 4 heavenly demon kings under river Styx. He led his followers to meet the revered one and offered the golden Adumbra flower, which naturally represented river Styx's attitude. Not long after, the ancestor river Styx personally came to the Bodhi tree to debate with the revered one in the lonely garden. As a result, the Bodhi tree fell into the ultimate and became a part of the Mahasvara. Fajing then realized that this place was indeed the Bodhi tree for the lonely garden. The sacred place where the Nalanda temple was located was also the Bodhi tree for the lonely garden. One was the sacred garden in the world and the other was in Spirited Mountain. Back then, the revered one picked up the Adumbra flower presented by river Styx and signaled all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to be at a loss. Only Venerable Maha Kasyapa smiled and imprinted it under the Bodhi tree where he was. This smile represented the eyes of righteousness, the wonderful heart of nirvana, the wonderful heart of nirvana, and the subtle dharma. It was not written in words and was passed to outsiders. It was the Zen of Maha Kasyapa. However, at this moment, Fajing saw Venerable Maha Kasyapa's smile and was enlightened. It was as if Kasyapa's smile had been waiting for this day. The river Styx delivered the Adumbra flower, and then the Pure Land was destroyed. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas fell together, and their evil thoughts turned into Daos, leaving behind Buddhas and ghosts. When the revered one saw the flower, he understood its meaning, and when Maha Kasyapa saw the flower, he smiled. All of this was for today. He left behind the opportunity to enlighten the fated people, and left behind the only way out of this once Buddhist land, which was now a dead land. It was also the key to sealing the poltergeist ghost. Master Fajing understood the mystery of Zen and couldn't help but cry. He bowed his head and kowtowed, "Revered one is merciful. Kasyapa is merciful." In the past, the river Styx preached and left behind the evil thoughts of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas here, turning them into Buddha ghosts and their evil bodies into Buddha bones. However, the evil thoughts of the river Styx reverberated in the land of sealed nothingness, turning the holy land of Buddhism into a devil's land. What about the revered one? Where was the thought left behind by the revered one of the other side? How did the Buddha and the Bodhisattva sever the evil thoughts in the past? Fajing had long realized that the Diamond Sutra they heard when they first stepped into the Garden of Solitude was the voice left behind by the revered one. If they felt something was wrong here, they could naturally chant the Diamond Sutra to combine with the thought left behind by the revered one to guide them out of this devil's land and not be polluted by the evil thoughts of the demon ancestor in the devil's land. However, no one understood this at that time, and no one had the opportunity to do so, which led to their doom of being trapped here. The revered one still left them a second way out, which was the Kasyapa under the Bodhi tree. Under the guidance of the nameless old monk, Fajing finally understood the epiphany symbolized by the smile of Kasyapa. He realized that the revered one had also left behind a thought in the Garden of Solitude, which could enlighten them out of the devil's land, dissolve the evil thoughts, and even force the Buddha ghosts to retreat. Fajing said calmly, "In the past, the Kasyapa smiled and faced the revered one. So the direction the Kasyapa looked at is where the revered one is." The old monks raised their heads, put their palms together, and chanted the name of Buddha. First, they bowed respectfully to the Kasyapa, thanking the merciful revered one for leaving behind a smile and opening a way out for them. Then they looked up and saw the Kasyapa facing them. They sat in a circle, facing different directions, but no matter which direction they turned, the shadow left behind by the Kasyapa faced them and smiled. An old monk exclaimed, "Why is the revered one's eyes looking at me? I see it too, the revered one is looking at me." The group of old monks sitting in a circle exclaimed. They looked at Kasyapa, and Maha Kasyapa also looked at them. Reverend Fajing put one palm in front of his chest, with a faint sense of sadness and tranquility. There was an unconcealable sense of loss in his eyes. He said sadly, "So, the revered one has always been in my heart. It's funny that I once saw the demon ancestor everywhere, remembered that the Buddha ghosts were by my side, saw the darkness of the ghosts, but forgot, the Buddha has always been in our hearts, the revered one is in our hearts." So the Kasyapa looked at us with a smile. So he looked at me and also at the Buddha. So the Buddha is in Spirited Mountain. Kasyapa, lend me your eyes. Fajing kowtowed and bowed. When he looked up again, he saw himself. His eyes had become the eyes of Kasyapa, and he smiled at the old monk sitting cross-legged before him. He wore a white robe, and the calm demeanor of the old monk had long been forgotten. Now there was an indescribable fatigue and faint fear in his eyes. His brows were lowered, and his expression was full of sorrow. The Buddhist light on him was no longer glorious, and was dyed with a layer of dim yellow. A faint circle of light enveloped him. Behind him was endless darkness and surging poltergeist ghosts. The immeasurable light had long dimmed. Right now, this old monk was just a wisp of dim yellow light in the endless darkness. He was struggling weakly because of dusk. The darkness was getting closer and closer, and was about to drown the last remaining light. Fajing had never looked at himself like this before, and he suddenly said, "So this is me. Where is the Buddha?" At this moment, he looked at the source of the dim light. The light came from his heart, and on the light sat a Buddha. He was a Buddha whose face could not be seen clearly, and it was not even a golden body, nor was it a Dharma that shone with endless brilliance and illuminated the world. It was just a stone Buddha statue with a little spirituality. The blurry face used to be exquisite and lively, but now it was etched with lines, just like the Buddha statue that Fajing saw in the small temple where his master was when he was young. He chanted scriptures under this Buddha statue, and the Buddhist heart and Zen nature sprouted. Along the way, the old monk had long passed away. Fajing started from a nameless small temple in a lonely mountain ridge, and walked to the various worlds. He saw more and more incredible Buddhist treasures and Dharma, and Buddha statues that contained countless mysterious Dharma and logos. He even became the mighty Bodhisattva in the scriptures. But today, at this moment, he finally knew that in his heart, the Buddha was still the broken stone statue in the small temple. No matter how many visualization diagrams of the Buddha he had seen in those precious scriptures, or even the Dharma of the Buddha personally drawn by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who had met the revered one, or the true face of the Buddha that contained countless mysteries. In his heart, it was still the first time he saw the Buddha. Fajing's face was already covered in tears. He could only see himself and the Buddha in his heart. The terrifying Buddha ghost beside him, the surging tide of darkness behind him, and the unpredictable group of devil monarchs of diabolism were all forgotten by him. Now, in his eyes, there was only one person and one Buddha. The person faced the Buddha and the Buddha faced the person. Fajing knelt in front of the Buddha, and worshipped the Buddha in his heart. Just like when he was still a little acolyte, the revered one placed his hand on the top of his head and said in a low voice, "The devil in your heart is here." Having said that, Fa Jing saw all his thoughts. Each thought rose and fell in his heart. He easily saw the rise and fall of his thoughts, the source and the essence. He saw himself clearly, but forgot what he saw at this moment. He saw his ugliness and holiness, desire and piety, evil thoughts and good thoughts, and saw his own nature and other thoughts. Fa Jing sighed softly and said in a low voice, "The Buddha is a Een devil." At this moment, the world view of the Buddha transmitted by river Styx appeared in his heart. These thoughts, concepts, understandings and thoughts turned into countless twisted and horrifying Een devils, surrounding his heart. This was the thought left behind by the Buddha. This thought was the Buddha, but it was also beyond the Buddha. This concept was another definition of the Buddha's thought defined by river Styx, Een devil. The revered one of the Buddha defined the Buddha ghosts as Een devils. This was a step further from river Styx's thoughts and understanding. He defined the external Buddha's thought as the Buddha ghosts and Een devils. Those who had Buddha's nature in their heart could revolve around the Buddha's thought and change their worldview. They could integrate into their heart, and the twisted nature was marked out, turning it into the appearance of the Een devil, which could be slashed by the sword of wisdom and the Buddha's heart. Under the suppression of the Buddha's thought, Fa Jing turned the Buddha ghosts into Een devils, and slashed them out with his own Zen heart. Under the Bodhi tree, Fa Jing, who was surrounding Venerable Kasyapa, suddenly stood up, leaving Fa Jing's corpse sitting on the ground. He was no longer trapped in the darkness. A green lamp was lit in his heart, shining in all directions. Wherever the infinite light shone, the darkness did not exist. He no longer existed for the Buddha ghosts, nor did he exist in the devil's soil. Any relationship with the Buddha and the devil's soil was left behind with the corpse. Then, one by one, the old monks stood up from the Bodhi tree and followed Reverend Fa Jing out of the devil's soil. However, not everyone had this kind of good fortune. Some old monks did not see the Buddha in their heart. Instead, they saw the evil thoughts of the Buddhas and the Buddha ghosts. They looked up and saw all their companions' corpses under the tree. They were almost scared out of their wits. Some stood up and ran frantically in the direction they came from, trying to escape from the devil's soil. Some sat paralyzed on the ground, letting the horrifying Buddha ghosts devour them. The demonic cultivators looked at the group of Buddhists sitting under the Bodhi tree. Some were pulled into the darkness by the horrifying existence, some ran into the depths of the devil's soil, and some died just like that. Yuanyu was also dumbfounded for a while. After a long time, he slapped his thigh and cursed, "Turtle, let them escape again. They must have found something left behind by the revered one of the revered one and escaped." Xue Tu also came to a sudden realization. He cursed in his heart, "Motherf asterisk cur, these bald donkeys are so slippery, even the great freedom sky devil's soil could let them escape. The one under the Bodhi tree is probably not Venerable Kasyapa. There must be some little secret that can help us get out of here. They're gone. What should we do?" The lifeless cult master prayed, "Slaughtering demon ancestor, you are our father. We are your dearest children. Father, please give us a way out and let us out." Yuanyu pulled Fan Wujie's sleeve and said in a low voice, "Now there are two ways to get out of here. Which one do you choose?" Fan Wujie had a dumbfounded look on his face. How many people from the Buddhism sect had died, and even with the help of the revered one of the world, only a portion of them managed to escape. Yet, Fan Wujie opened his mouth and said that there were two paths. Was this worthy of the sacrifices of so many people from the Buddhism sect? Yuanyu seemed to see the doubt in Fan Wujie's heart and sighed. They are Buddhists, falling into the demon ancestors' territory, of course they will die, and only if they are lucky enough to escape. We are the direct descendants of the demon ancestor, there is no need to go through so much trouble. Of the two paths I'm talking about, the first one is blooming flowers to see Buddha, which is the path that Buddhists use to escape. I saw clearly just now that those bald donkeys saw the revered one of the world from Venerable Kasyapa, and that was why they escaped. In a while, you will go and see Venerable Kasyapa. Moko Kasyapa is the ancestor of Zen, and he is most particular about enlightenment. As long as you can understand your own Buddha nature, you can be like those bald donkeys, cut off a corpse and free yourself, leaving behind the tainted thoughts of the demon ancestor, and leave the Pure Land. What about the second way? Fan Wujie expressed that he wanted to compare the two to see what the demon ancestor's conditions were like. The second way is simple. For us, as long as we integrate the demon ancestor's demonic thoughts into our great Tao, and then go up to the Buddha and shout, defining us as demons, we can transform into ghosts and turn into some kind of demon. Then we can subdue the demon and return to our original appearance. In my experience, the world should have been tainted long ago. Otherwise, how did the rumors of ghosts turning back into ghosts come about? But because of the thoughts of the few powerful beings in the world, no one can see the specter. If no one can see it, then it doesn't exist. So after the souls of everyone in this world dissipate, they no longer exist, and no one can prove whether or not there is a specter. After we leave, the specter's divine ability will turn into some kind of demon, and the specter's thoughts can no longer be observed. The demonic thoughts left by the demon ancestor in the specter's thoughts will turn into some kind of demon. I've even guessed what the devil that the poltergeist originally transformed into was. Yuan Yu smiled confidently. It should be the demon Tao of the 10 demon Tao. Outside the ultimate, the specter's thoughts can't be observed, so the ghosts that contain the demon ancestor's demonic thoughts turn into demons. After Fan Wujie was exposed, he really found that the demonic nature of his thoughts, the demon ancestor's thoughts, had changed into another form and turned into 2 great divine abilities. Heaven-burning demon immortal body, heaven-resenting heart demon myriad transformations. Fan Wujie shuddered and asked in a low voice, in other words, as long as the Buddha seals the ghosts, turning them into demons and heart demons, subduing them with the demon Tao, they can also escape from this demonic land. Then the specter created by the demon ancestor has already been sealed here by the powerful beings. Outside the demonic land, the specter's thoughts will no longer exist, and even the ghosts will turn into demons and heart demons that are restrained by the righteous path. So this time, the demon ancestor's plan has failed. Yuan Yu laughed coldly. Who knows, the specter's thoughts don't exist to us outside the ultimate. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist to Patriarch River Styx. Maybe this is Patriarch River Styx's original intention. The specter can't be seen, only the River Styx can. In this way, in the primordial times, all the souls, all the ghosts, and the specters that turn into specters after death, who will they fall into? Fan Wujie thought deeper and felt even more horrified. Isn't this the love of all living beings in the primordial times? All the thoughts, information, and thoughts of all living beings won't be destroyed with death, and will only fall into the hands of Patriarch River Styx. Let him control all the thoughts of all living beings. Yuan Yu laughed coldly. That's why there's a legend that when all living beings have distracting thoughts, a demon will appear in the sea of blood. As long as the distracting thoughts are not destroyed, the demon will not perish. That's why there are endless demons in the world. They are immortal, and they are the scariest foundation of the demon Tao. The demon ancestor of River Styx tried to control all the thoughts of all living beings, and all the information of the universe. With such great ambition, will he die? Yuan Yu sighed. In name, the demon Tao has 2 demon ancestor, one more hateful than the other, so it's normal for him to die. Fan Wujie shivered. He didn't dare to think further. If the specter's thoughts were not destroyed, the specter would not be seen. If the world had really been tainted long ago, but all the truth had been sealed by the revered one and the 3 pure ones. If all the ghosts in the world really turned into specters after death, or even the more hidden and invisible she and he, then where did all the distracting thoughts and thoughts of all living beings in the world go? Was this the original intention of River Styx when he created the specter? To keep all living beings? To turn all living beings into demons? Fan Wujie still had a part of River Styx's thoughts in his consciousness. He tried to think from River Styx's point of view, and found that River Styx was really the kind of person who couldn't be understood at all, and whose thoughts were demonic and terrifying. Would he one day create a huge specter that contained the thoughts of all living beings that had existed in the primordial era, and let it devour him? In the end, it would turn into a demon of all living beings, an ocean of red dust, an ocean of information entropy, and become the source of the immortal demonic nature of the primordial era. If the demon ancestor of slaughter really did such a crazy thing, then all living beings would really become demons. As long as all living beings were not destroyed, the demon Tao would not perish. That was an invincible position. At this moment, Fan Wujie wasn't thinking with his own consciousness, but with River Styx's consciousness. When he finished thinking, before he could even feel fear, this thought inexplicably disappeared without a trace. River Styx stared at an invisible fiendish diagram in the primordial universe. At this moment, an unfamiliar specter suddenly appeared in the fiendish diagram. At every moment, countless specters were born in the fiendish diagram. These were the specters that flowed into the fiendish diagram after the information carriers in the primordial universe were destroyed. However, this specter was rather special. It came from a person who was still alive. River Styx split a tiny bit of his attention to pay attention to this newly appeared specter. Then, he continued to stare at the fiendish diagram, at the demon ancestor of all beings that was slowly taking shape. River Styx's lips curled into a smile. "Long time no see, old friend." In the ultimate, even without Yuan Yu revealing the secret, the group of Taoists of the demonic Tao studied for a long time and gradually came up with a way to change forms and escape from the land of sealed dreams. One of the demon monarchs accepted demon ancestors' idea and turned into a group of specters. He came before Kasyapa and used his specter body to enter the information left behind by Kasyapa. As expected, he saw the revered one of the world shouting, "Een demon!" After receiving this blow and waking up, he realized that he had cultivated the sky-burning Een demon invincible body. His state had turned into countless Een demons, which were extremely difficult to deal with. When he used the secret demonic subduing technique to subdue the Een demons and make them his own, he turned back into his original appearance and disappeared from the eyes of the demon monarchs of the demonic Tao. Thus, everyone began to cultivate Een demons and heart demons. Out of nowhere, they gained two great magical powers that didn't involve any fundamental changes in themselves. Wasn't it wonderful? Yuan Yu naturally had a way. With the revered one of the world's thoughts, he cut off a corpse. Only Fan Wujie was a little conflicted. He refused to fall into the demonic Tao, but he was also worried that he would be enlightened by the Buddhists. In the end, he used the ideas of the demon ancestor and the Gautama Buddha to fight against each other to minimize the impact and escape from the land of sealed dreams. Chapter 1268. After leaving the strange and terrifying demonic land, Fan Wujie and the others finally understood why the will left behind by the World One to seal the demonic land was the only way out. The demonic land was on a different level from the normal world. There was no end to the demonic land. It was more like an illusion or a message. As they slowly saw the truth of the demonic land, they gradually delved deeper into it. Finally, this illusion turned into reality, trapping them inside. Now, after the revered one of the world's severe warning, Denglong was defined as a Een demon, and the real sealed dreamland became an illusory mirage. After getting rid of this illusion, they only needed one step to step out of this world that was neither real nor illusory. Master Fajing was the first to take the first step. He turned around to look behind him, only to find that there was no trace of the demonic earth at all. Similarly, he could not see the path he had come from. Even the path back to the blood sea of calamity had disappeared. This was a path of no return. Fa Jing put his palms together and sighed. So the demonic land of the sealed domain is actually the will of the single tree for Lonely Garden. It's hard to tell the real from the real. Reality and illusion are two sides, we still fell for it. The group of demon monarchs followed closely behind. Burning Soul Demon Monarch said with lingering guilt, "This godforsaken place is actually an illusory place. It scared me so much that I thought the demon ancestor had really moved the sacred place where the world venerables imparted Tao away." Yuan Yu shook his head. This is not an illusory place. The demon ancestor had indeed moved away the sacred place where the world one lived for 20 years. If we understand the single tree as a Yin demon, then this is obviously an illusion of an external demon. But if we accept the demon ancestor's understanding of the single tree, then it's hard to say which of the two single trees for Lonely Garden is real. Fan Wu Jie said with a strange expression, "Then of the two single trees for Lonely Garden, which one is real?" "Both of them are real." Yuan Yu sighed and said, "To great beings like the revered one of the world and the devil ancestor, anything unimaginable could happen. Not to mention 2 gibbons for the Garden of Solitude, even if hundreds of primeval worlds and countless generations of primeval continents coexisted, it would not be inconceivable. Their realm has long surpassed the limits of our imagination. All the common sense in the world is useless against them, because common sense is defined by them. Reversing cause and effect, redefining concepts, and even tampering with the great Tao of the universe is as easy as eating and drinking to them. If it weren't for the fact that there's more than one powerful being in the world, then all living beings in the universe would just be toys in the hands of powerful beings." "Is Dara really that terrifying?" Fan Wu Jie found it hard to understand. He said doubtfully, "But the Dara I've seen, even though Azura King Shimori is very powerful, he hasn't reached this level." Yuan Yu smiled but did not reply. "Demons, filthy creatures, ambitious wolves." Master Fajing glared angrily at Dara. Behind him, the old monks stood in a row, all with murderous looks on their faces. They faintly blocked the escape route of the demonic cultivators, blocking them in front of the destructive tribulation tide. Compared to when they first entered the sinkhole, more than half of the old monks were gone. Many of them had been killed by the demon monarchs in the land of sealed cacao. If the demonic cultivators hadn't attracted the evil thoughts of all the Buddhas, they wouldn't have lost more than half of their people. Although the demonic cultivators had also lost some members, with all the demon monarchs below the Tao monarch level dead, and the old demon monarchs who had been assimilated in the land of sealed cacao, 2 demon monarchs failed to subdue the Yin demons. Instead, they were controlled by the Yin demons and turned into Yin demons. However, both the Shui-Tu king and Ajati had a vague suspicion in their hearts. With the cunning and insidious nature of the demon monarchs, even if they seemed to be defeated, no one could be sure that they weren't acting. At least, it was a little strange that an old schemer like the corpse god could be so easily brainwashed by the murderous thought. Although it wasn't impossible, it was a kind of illusion that made people feel it was a little fake. Yuan Yu was sure that although the corpse god had indeed been assimilated by the land of sealed cacao, it definitely wasn't like what he had said. He hadn't been able to deny the murderous thoughts in time, and had been assimilated by the murderous thoughts. The corpse god came from the corpse demon bloodline. He had created a shocking and amazing artifact like artificially burned relics, which was favored by the slaughtered demon ancestor. It was strange no matter how one looked at it, for him to be so easily plotted against by the slaughtered demon ancestor. Based on Yuan Yu's understanding of River Styx's evil tastes, the fake relics that the corpse god had created must be especially suitable for this young demon ancestor. With the demon ancestor's blessing, the corpse god wouldn't be so easily tricked. No matter how one looked at it, it felt like the corpse god had deliberately put himself in a hopeless situation. Yuan Yu saw a shocking transformation on the ancient tree that the old man corpse god had transformed into. He seemed to be transforming his life form, from a human to a tree, from life to death, from a ghost to a hoe, from a hoe to a devil, from a devil to a Buddha. Yuan Yu could see through the several major transformations that the old man corpse god was going to perform with the help of the almighty experts in the sealed land of Fiend Earth. First, he allowed the murderous thoughts to transform him, changing his life form into an ancient tree. Then, the ancient tree gradually withered and turned into a tree ghost. Then, the ghost body changed again and turned into a hoe ghost. Then, with the smile of Lord Kasyapa, he found the murderous thoughts of the revered one and was defined by the revered one as demon. With the smile of Lord Kasyapa, he was enlightened by the revered one's Buddhist nature and turned into the Buddhist Tao. Yuan Yu couldn't see the subsequent transformations. However, according to Yuan Yu's speculation, the corpse god was going to change his life form 9 times to open another path of Dara Dao. If Yuan Yu's guess was correct, after the corpse god received the favor of the slaughtered demon ancestor, the ancestor river Styx passed on a forbidden technique of the demon Dao, the supreme secret technique of the demon Dao. Legend had it that when goddess Hutu created the reincarnation to open a path for all living beings, the river Styx drove the sea of blood to drown the reincarnation and discussed the Tao with goddess Hutu. They defined the reincarnation and added the ideology of the demon Tao to the reincarnation. At that time, the river Styx proposed the 9 questions of hell. Each question was a supreme secret technique of the demon Tao that involved the great secret of reincarnation. According to the legend, the 9 questions of hell were 9 flaws that involved the essence of reincarnation. In other words, they were the weak points of the concept of reincarnation. By mastering the 9 questions of hell, one could find the weak points of reincarnation and surpass reincarnation to achieve immortality. They would no longer be restricted by the netherworld and the 3 lives of reincarnation, reaching the terrifying Tao fruit of immortality. Each question was a different path of Dara Dao. However, because the 9 questions of hell directly attacked the weakest flaw of reincarnation, in other words, the 9 questions of hell was the 9 imperfections of reincarnation. If there were too many Dara that used the 9 questions of hell to achieve Tao, or even 9 of them, it might shake the foundation of the netherworld. Therefore, the netherworld was wary of it. If one wanted to cultivate the 9 great techniques of the 9 questions of hell, they would definitely suffer the backlash of the netherworld. The counterattack of reincarnation was extremely terrifying. It might even be cursed by the 12 witch gods. Even a heaven immortal like Dara wouldn't be able to get away with it. Not to mention a mere Tao Lord that was preparing to achieve Dara Dao. Therefore, the 9 questions of hell was also a forbidden technique of the devil Tao. In a debate back then, Lady Hutu and the Patriarch of River Styx fought to a draw. The Patriarch of River Styx used the 9 questions of hell to determine the boundaries of reincarnation and won by a small move. However, according to some ridiculous rumors, the reason why the Patriarch of River Styx could win by a small move in Lady Hutu's territory and occupy a land of the netherworld for the Blood Sea was because of the secret support of the 3 pure ones and the Buddhist sects. They suppressed reincarnation and restricted the authority of the primordial reincarnation. This kind of baseless, sinister, and malicious rumor would naturally not be acknowledged by the Buddhist sects, Taoist sects, or the devil Tao. Even the shameless and malicious rumormonger was suppressed by the Patriarch of River Styx in the Blood Sea, never to be reincarnated. He received the retribution he deserved. As the saying goes, the Skynet is vast but not leaky. Good and evil have their retribution. Yuan Yu didn't know much about the 9 questions of hell. This was because the more he knew, the more flaws and weaknesses he knew about reincarnation, and the easier it would be for him to take advantage of reincarnation. However, you happen to know a little about the question that the old man corpse god got. It wasn't much, just a rough idea. It was also the reason why the people of the underworld gave him a small lesson back then. The question that the old man corpse god got was, who is the true self in the reincarnation past life? In other words, it was the boundary of the individual in reincarnation. The true spirit was the boundary of the soul in reincarnation. This question was a variant of the ship of Theseus. It referred to the problem of how to define reincarnation in the endless changes of the self. The ship of Theseus talked about the definition of one's self. However, after Hudu created reincarnation, reincarnation had the problem of defining one's self. The definition of one's self was a philosophical problem, while the definition of one's existence in reincarnation was a problem of the laws of the world. Take the ship of Theseus as an example. River Styx proposed the paradox of identity and paradox of continuity. A ship could sail for hundreds of years on the sea, thanks to continuous maintenance and replacement of parts. As long as a piece of wood rotted, it would be replaced, and so on until all the functional parts were no longer the original ones. The question was the ship that was created in the end still the original ship of Theseus, or was it a completely different ship? If it wasn't the original ship, then at what point was it no longer the original ship? A cultivator who cultivated the soul would constantly replace the elements of his soul until all the elements of the soul were reconstructed. Was he still the original him? If he was, then his lifespan would be limited by reincarnation. After his lifespan ended, he would still be pulled into reincarnation. If he wasn't, then at what point was he a completely new individual? Hudu couldn't answer yes at all, because if she answered yes, it meant that there was no limit to the individuals defined by reincarnation, and the entire untainted land could be seen as a division of Pangu. If she answered yes, did it mean that all life in the untainted land was just a reconstruction of Pangu? One day, if Pangu didn't want to reincarnate, would it mean that the underworld would destroy the world? To control everything in the untainted land? This meant that the authority of reincarnation would expand infinitely, and it would be impossible to get the support of the great mediums. If not, then what limit would be reached to be considered a completely new individual? River Styx created a magical power for this, the 9-death reincarnation deceiving great spell. The cultivator could shed his own soul and the elements of existence, even a part of himself, just like shedding his skin. Every time he transformed, he replaced the components of his own existence. After 9 transformations, the cultivator would be unrecognizable. Other than the connection of karma, he would be a completely different individual from his past self. Then, here came the question for Hudu. Would such an individual be judged as a completely new individual by reincarnation? Was the transformation a change in the self, or was it an inheritance and continuation? Was such an individual the same and continued? Of course, this question was comprehensive. River Styx also created magical powers such as the 3 lives reincarnation great spell. By constantly shedding and transforming himself, he could cultivate a person into 3 people. He also created the 3 corpses great spell. By continuously cutting off one's elements, emotions, desires, karma, and inherent attributes, he would become 3 corpses. In the end, he would only be left with the original self, which was like the original self. What about the existences who cultivated these strange magical powers? How would they be considered as individuals? The 9-death reincarnation deceiving great spell asked what boundary a person had to reach in order to be considered a completely new self. River Styx created several kinds of life to ask about reincarnation from this aspect. There was the reincarnation heavenly silkworm. Through continuous transformation, it lived one life after another, and through shedding its skin, it created a small reincarnation cycle. There was the 9 changes dragon soul worm grass. When a worm dies, it becomes a grass, when the grass grows, it becomes a worm, and when the worm becomes a dragon, It reincarnates continuously between the life forms of a dragon worm and a grass. They were all asking the same question. There were endless ways for life to continue. Some split themselves, some changed their form, and some molted into a new form. Then, what was reproduction? What was living? In other words, what was inheritance? What was continuation? We don't know what expression Lady Huda had when faced with all these questions and paradoxes. We only know that after River Styx asked this question, the entire witch tribe besieged the Blood Sea for 3 periods. We only know that the cultivators who cultivated these strange magical powers would often encounter strange and ominous things from the depths of the nether world. Every single one of them had died in an extremely unpeaceful manner. Their corpses had undergone bizarre changes, growing hair of various colors, flesh scales, and bone spikes. Most of the time, their corpses were still twitching even after tens of thousands of years. Sometimes, not even the suppressing talismans drawn by Grand Luo could suppress them, and not even Taoist monarchs could hold down their coffins. Even the blessed land where the primeval phoenixes landed could not bury them. Even the ancient heaven couldn't pardon them. If they didn't dare to bury them, they could only be cremated. The cremation burned fiercely. Strange blood flames and red lotuses appeared in the netherworld. Sometimes we could even see spider lilies and the netherworld in the fire. When they were burning, the corpses were still howling and emitting yellow smoke. The smoke reached the heaven, symbolizing the great evil in the world. When buried, there would be drought demons, and when cremated, there would be Ho. These were the great evil beasts in the world mentioned in the classic of mountains and seas. Sometimes, the blood flames didn't burn through them even after several periods. Even after they were burned, they couldn't be buried. Wherever they were buried, it would become a place of extreme evil. Wherever the ashes were scattered, even the feng shui treasure land would become a place of great evil. Wind would blow from the nether world and bring countless souls to dance on the grave. When it was almost over, his family said that the place where the grave was located often had many strange things for no reason, including but not limited to ghosts hitting the wall to the 18th level of hell. Black smoke billowed out, strange monsters grew, and all kinds of horrible ghosts appeared. These cases couldn't be investigated because it would touch upon a very terrifying primeval secret. It was the real ancient taboo. Lady Huda held a grudge. Those who knew were all dead. Whether they died peacefully or not, the examples were as above. In the end, the result of the discussion was that the netherworld marked every living being with a true spirit mark. The true spirit mark represented the limit of reincarnation. If the true spirit didn't change, no matter how it changed, it would only change the outer outline of the soul. Once the true spirit changed, it would be a brand new individual. The true spirit represented the limit of the individual recognized by the netherworld and entered the netherworld to continue the next life. The true spirit was the label that the netherworld attached to every living being. This was the previous life that Lady Hutu and Patriarch River Styx revolved around in the netherworld. Which was the true self? The debate of this question. Of course, the true spirit couldn't solve all the problems of this question. This represented some loopholes that could bypass the netherworld. For example, some powerful demonic cultivators had the same strange thinking as Patriarch River Styx. I don't care which one the netherworld thinks is me. The one I recognize is me. Therefore, they created a substitute with the true spirit to replace them in the netherworld. They would then live their next life in a brand new form. However, the prerequisites for this kind of deceiving supernatural power were very harsh. First, they had to understand themselves. For this kind of continuation to exceed the definition of the reincarnation true spirit, that person had to be extremely crazy. They had to be as crazy as River Styx. The crazy netherworld didn't mind them using this loophole. Why bother with a crazy person? As for how Yuan Yu knew the meaning of this question, the 9 questions of the netherworld was a real taboo. Knowing it would offend Lady Hudu and even the entire netherworld. This was because Yuan Yu was proficient in the art of transformation. Guess what was the highest realm of the art of transformation? It was to transform oneself into another person without any hidden dangers. One transformation, one life. It was nothing to deceive the 3 calamities and 9 tribulations, but it was amazing to deceive the netherworld and the netherworld. Yuan Yu vaguely guessed that the forbidden supernatural power that Old Man Corpse God had obtained should be the 9 deaths reincarnation, deceiving the heavens great technique. It allowed one to continuously transform oneself, shed one's true spirit 9 times, deceiving the heaven reincarnation, and be reborn 9 times without changing. This allowed one to completely break away from the boundaries of the netherworld and achieve another kind of immortality. By exploiting the loopholes in the netherworld, one could prove the Tao through the netherworld. This was the Dara who achieved the Tao in a different way. In the myriad worlds, or even in the great desolation, cultivating this kind of supernatural power was courting death. The consequences could be seen from the previous unpeaceful death. Only when the netherworld no longer existed and the river Styx left the cultivators of the 9 questions of the netherworld with a slim chance of survival, could they avoid the curse of the netherworld and have a chance of succeeding in their revenge. Obviously, the only slim chance of survival for cultivating the 9 deaths reincarnation, deceiving the heavens great technique, was the strange and terrifying demonic land of the sealed dreamland. Here, one could transform into 9 different life forms and undergo 9 shocking transformations to prove the Dara Tao. The 9th transformation should be carried out in the Dara heaven. After all, the Dara Tao that relied on the netherworld's reincarnation was still unstable. The only place in the world that could prove the Dara Tao outside was the eternal Dara heaven. After the 8 transformations, Old Man Corpse God would walk out of the sealed dreamland and head to the returning ruins, where the Dara heaven would undergo the final transformation. Indeed, a profound plan. Yuan Yu sighed with emotion. Thinking back to his own experience of proving the Tao, and then looking at the other party's plan, Yuan Yu couldn't help but sigh. He was just a blind cat running into a dead mouse, and it was all due to some mysterious luck. Yuan Yu couldn't help but feel a little ashamed at this thought, but he quickly threw it to the back of his mind. After all, he still had the strength. It was just that it wasn't obvious. On this side, the Buddhas and devils were facing each other, and the atmosphere was very tense. Fan Wujie, on the other hand, saw a building wreckage in the distance. It seemed to be a collapsed palace, and it seemed to be an ancient heavenly palace that had collapsed for some unknown reason. From the wreckage of the palace, one could see that its outer wall seemed to be made of green jade condensed by dense immortal energy. The polishing of the cosmic light and the destruction of the tribulation power could not damage this green jade wall at all, which showed how extraordinary it was. However, such an extraordinary palace had 2 pillars in front of it broken, tilting and collapsing. The wreckage pointed to the sky, and it was covered with scorch marks and weapon wounds. Fan Wujie's divine sense spread out, and he frowned and said, "Everyone, let's put down our previous grudges first. There is the aura of the annihilation devil disciples here." Great Master Fa Jing also shone the purple gold alms bowl and saw the faint destruction tribulation power in the void. He reached out and stopped the old monk behind him, saying in a low voice, "Junior Marshal brothers, don't be in a hurry to settle the debt with the devil Tao. It is more important to take down the annihilation devil disciples first. I don't know what method they used to bypass the strange sealed dreamland, but they are 1 step ahead of us. Devil bastard!" Fa Jing glared at them fiercely. "We will remember this debt first. When we face the annihilation devil disciples and the remnants of Ro, don't be a coward." The blood-soaked demon monarch scolded back, "If a dog barks again, I'll beat the shit out of their infinite eons tribulation. Don't be a coward, bald dog." "Humph." Great Master Fa Jing snorted coldly, but he didn't bother to answer. Therefore, the 2 sides temporarily stopped fighting and split into 2 groups, heading towards the mysterious palace wreckage in the distance. Chapter 1269. This is. Even though they were mentally prepared, the moment they saw the ruins of the palace, the demonic cultivators still showed a hint of well-hidden shock. There was no sun or moon in the endless ruins, but there was a hazy yellow glow to the place. It was like the last bit of light left behind by the setting sun. Beneath this dim yellow glow, one could only vaguely make out the outlines of the distant palace ruins. Fortunately, all of them were Dowlords who stood at the very apex of the universe, which was why they weren't affected by the light and were able to see the ruins clearly. The tall palace had long been turned to dust, and only the broken walls were left on the ground, like the fangs of a dog. If it were not for the exquisite patterns and mysterious Tao patterns, many people would have thought it was just a pile of rubble. What really made everyone's expression change was the only remaining wall. Huge jade steps were piled up in a messy manner, and they were once the solid foundation of the palace. Where the remaining wall was should be where the main hall of the heavenly palace was. Judging from the size of the foundation, when the main hall was complete, it should have occupied more than 100,000 miles. It was a magnificent heavenly palace that was comparable to the undulating mountains. But now it was just a boundless ruin. A broken board fell into the dust, half of it burned by some strange fire, leaving the other half in the wild grass. There were some divine characters left on the board, which allowed people to draw the complete outline of the divine character according to its aura. The Shui-Tu king was repairing the veins of the divine characters in the void. He crudely drew the strange divine characters, but every character seemed to have the Tao and body of a powerful innate life form, like a god. The divine characters seemed to be the true form of an innate god, depicting an amazing divine power that was in harmony with the Tao of heaven and earth. The translucent palace. The Shui-Tu king read out the contents of the three divine characters, sending chills down Fan Wujie's spine. He said nervously, "The translucent palace. Where is this place? There are too many buildings called the translucent palace in the world, but for it to have such an aura, could it be the translucent palace of the ancient heaven's 72 throne halls?" The demon monarch of soul raised his hand and released a 9 underworld flame, which burned on the jade steps for a long time. When the fire stopped, there wasn't even a scorch mark on the jade step. The demon monarch of soul was frightened. Is this really the ruins of the ancient heaven? The heaven disappeared inexplicably after the destruction of the primordial universe, but it was still a terrifying force that once ruled over the primordial universe, the symbol of the world's orthodoxy. In the entire realm sea, the disappearance of the heaven was the greatest mystery since the primordial universe was broken. Just from the mediocre veins of the heaven's remnant, several great forces of the heavens had emerged. The power of the complete of the celestial realm sea was unimaginable. Of the celestial realm. If celestial court could still raise a great army, they might be able to immediately sweep through realm sea, suppress. No, it should be suppress the various heavens, make all ghosts and monsters, monsters and monsters, all monsters and snakes kneel in submission. How could such a powerful heavenly court disappear inexplicably during the destruction of the untainted land? It was true that the destruction of the primordial world was a terrifying calamity, but in all the realms, there were countless people who could only be regarded as ants in front of the heaven. To put it nicely, they were just big ants. Small forces had survived, and now they were all putting on airs, pretending to be the holy lands and forbidden lands that had existed since the ancient times, the sects and sects that were the masterminds behind all the heavens. According to the tribulation of the shattering of the primordial world, that was actually the case. This small storm could not drown the heavenly courts, which had been through countless storms since the primordial world. Therefore, it was rumored that on the eve of the destruction of the primordial world, the heavenly court encountered a great calamity. Without the suppression of the heavenly court, the primordial world was broken. The cause and effect of these two things were reversed. It was not the destruction of the primordial world that led to the calamity of the heavenly court, but the calamity of the heavenly court that led to the destruction of the primordial world. Regarding the disappearance of the heavenly court, there were a few conjectures made by the historical scholars who had nothing better to do. The heavenly Tao became a spirit. Legend had it that because the heavenly Tao had operated for countless years, it had devoured countless great divine beings, giving birth to its own consciousness. In order to destroy the conscious heavenly Tao, the ancient heavenly court used all its strength to fight against the heavenly Tao. It shattered the primordial world, broke the heavenly Tao, and wiped out the newly born consciousness of the heavenly Tao. Because of this, the heavenly court's fate was broken, and it perished together with the heavenly Tao. The Emperor of Heaven's body was left behind to suppress the remains of the heavenly Tao. There was also the primordial war. Legend had it that the heavenly court fought against a mysterious force. Both sides fought until the primordial world collapsed, and they perished together. As for the mysterious force that fought against the heavenly court, there were many different opinions. There were remnants of the primordial demon court, connate lifeforms, ancestral gods, and the primordial witch tribe. There were even 3 religions that believed that the mystic door, Buddhism sect, and devil sect had joined forces to destroy the heavenly court that prevented them from ruling over the heavens. There was also the netherworld, which believed that the netherworld controlled reincarnation and hid it very well. In the end, it went against the heavens and perished together with the heavens and the earth. There were also rumors of foreign wars. It was said that the prehistoric universe had encountered a foreign universe, and a bitter war had broken out with the ruling divine court of that universe. As for which foreign universe it was, there were many different opinions. Some said it was a demonic universe, some said it was the Saha world that Buddha had secretly opened, and some said it was a world of gods that used winged humans as their weapons of war. There was even the conspiracy of the devil world, the betrayal of the 4 imperial emperors, the internal strife of the heavenly court, the degradation of the heavens, and so on. Among them, the degradation of the heavens was the most interesting. The Taoist who proposed it believed that the primordial world was not broken and the heavenly court did not disappear. It was because all the existences in the heavens were now low-level lifeforms. The heavenly court felt that there were too many weak, barbaric, and stupid low-level lifeforms in the primordial world. Therefore, they created a heavenly world and exiled the low-level lifeforms there. Only the most outstanding ones were selected and allowed to ascend to the primordial world and be ruled by the heavenly court. To put it bluntly, everyone in the heavenly realm was trash and was thrown into a trash-can universe by the heavenly court to avoid polluting the primordial world, which was rich with spiritual chi. There was evidence for this theory. The evidence was the disappearance of the connate lifeforms and the fading traces of Dara after the primordial world was broken. After the primordial world was broken, too many great existences disappeared. Those connate gods and devils who captured the sun and the moon, those tyrannical connate lifeforms, and those ancient races and experts, all disappeared without a trace. In the heavenly world, there was a group of believers who believed in this theory. They studied day and night on how to ascend to the primordial world. This is not the ancient heavenly court. The Shwe-Tu king denied immediately. He said solemnly, "The godly script on this board is the primordial demon script. The primordial demon script is what we call it later. In the primordial era, this script was the script of the gods. The demon race called it the primordial godly script. Every primordial godly script is the manifestation of the great Tao symbolized by the connate lifeforms. For example, this Connect script is one of the godly scripts mastered by the primordial celestial Fox clan. It symbolizes the power of godly connection. Connection is the connection with godly connection. Those who are inspired by godly connection are called Connect. The Fox clan is very prone to inspiration. They can communicate with others in their dreams, or they are born with intelligence, or they can easily borrow the power of will. The primordial demon script next to the connect script looks like a divine bird flapping its wings and dancing. It means brightness. It is the godly script of the primordial divine beast, the connate life form, the bright bird. It symbolizes that the bright bird repels evil beasts and suppresses filthy evil Tao. It makes the sun and the moon rise high and the world is bright. Brightness means tranquility without any filth. The last primordial demon script is like a mountain, which is the location of the earth vein. It is a godly script formed naturally by the mountains and rivers. It is also one of the godly scripts mastered by the primordial dragon clan. The primordial dragon clan and the dragon clan of the four seas could only hide in the water vein, leaving only the divine right in the water. At its peak, the primordial dragon clan ruled over half of the primordial world. All the mountains and rivers in the world were controlled by the dragon god. The ancestor of the dragon must be a high mountain, the top is the dragon tower, and the flat is the treasure hall. This primordial demon script is as solid as the treasure hall. It is unchangeable, flat, and sturdy. It is the word hall. The hall of enlightenment, according to the meaning of the primordial demon script, is to suppress the primordial world and make the world bright. The treasure hall, which is used to communicate with the gods and humans, is responsible for suppressing evil and contacting the lower realm. It is an institution that exists as a window for the heavenly court to rule the lower realm and communicate with all living beings. The Shui Tu King's attainments in the primordial demon script are indeed profound. Yuan Yu exclaimed, "Many people here probably don't even know the existence of the primordial demon script. Although I have heard a little about it, I only know a little about it. I only know that it exists, but I can't recognize it in person. This Hall of Enlightenment uses the primordial demon script as a book. This heavenly palace should be the remains of the primordial demon court. The primordial demon court, or the former heavenly court, it is said that it was destroyed in the war with the ancestor of sorcery. Someone's thoughts were in turmoil, and he could not help but sigh. However, Ajati sneered and retorted, "In the primordial demon court and the sorcerer tribe perished together. Then, in the ancient times, the heavenly court took the opportunity to rise. The Emperor of Heaven ruled the primordial world. Can you say that? Later, a part of the ancient sorcery cult joined our devil path. Everyone has some understanding of the sorcery cult. Let me ask you, how did the ancestor of sorcery cult become the orthodox great god of the primordial heavenly court? Why did the four seasons, spring, summer, autumn, and winter sacrifice still worship the primordial sorcerer god? And the primordial divine court was demoted to the primordial demon court? It was not even recognized as the orthodox heavenly court? Why did the Emperor of Heaven rise in the ancient times after the great sorcery and demon war? Could it be that his throne was given by the sorcerer tribe? The Emperor of Heaven's bearing. How can you believe such a thing? Back then, when Tung Wang Kung led the immortals, didn't he also have the bearing of the Emperor of Heaven? Then, why was he killed by the demon Emperor of Heaven? At that time, the demon emperor was also called the Emperor of Heaven. Why was he stripped of his throne and was only called the demon emperor? Let me see. The demon emperor was most likely killed by the Emperor of Heaven. At that time, the Emperor of Heaven did not ascend to the throne. It was probably because his name was not right and his words did not sound right. He had to reincarnate and sweep the primordial world with a mighty momentum, and then ascend to the throne. The demon monarch of burning soul could not help but refute, nonsense. If the demon emperor was killed by the Emperor of Heaven, then why didn't he ascend to the throne with the momentum of killing the demon emperor and sweep the world? Why bother to reincarnate again? Wouldn't killing a demon emperor and becoming the emperor be even more famous and more legitimate? With his hands behind his back, Ajati said, "According to my research, the Emperor of Heaven could not ascend to the throne at that time because of his awkward status." Ridiculous. What kind of status did the Emperor of Heaven have? How powerful was he to be able to kill the demon emperor? Why would he say that his identity was awkward? Could it be that the Emperor of Heaven was actually a subject of the demon emperor? Killing the demon emperor was an offense and a plot to usurp the throne, so he hid his identity and skipped this part? Someone among the old demons could not help but refute. Ajati sneered. How honorable is the Emperor of Heaven? How could he be a subject of the demon emperor? At that time, during the Great Wizard and Demon War, those who could fight the demon emperor could not be in the demon court. They could only be in the wizard tribe. So the Emperor of Heaven might be a wizard ancestor. Boolsh *T. If the Emperor of Heaven was a wizard, why didn't he take this opportunity to rebuild the Supreme Wizard Court? Instead, he reincarnated and rebuilt the Heavenly Court. Isn't that like taking off his pants to fart? The wizard tribe has many political parties. There are as many as 12 wizard ancestors, and they are all equal in status. If the wizard court was established, who would be the Emperor of Heaven? Wouldn't the Emperor of Heaven have 11 brothers and sisters who are equal to him? Ajati said mockingly, the 12 wizard ancestors are all equally famous. How could it be easy to distinguish who is superior? The Emperor of Heaven has always been wise, so he pulled out a group of forces from the wizard tribe and established his own sect. In the end, he swept through the world and ascended to the throne. He completely cut himself off from the past, and even the great merit of killing the demon emperor was hidden. I wonder how much smarter he is than you. You are joking and talking nonsense. You want to apologize to all living beings in the world. Someone among the old demons stepped forward angrily. Everyone hurriedly pulled the two of them apart. Yuan Yu wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. As he pulled the man's belt, he secretly glanced at Ajati. He was afraid. Could these things be said so casually? And this guy's guess was damn accurate. These things were actually not secrets. It was just that the identities of the two parties involved were too high and noble, so no one in the know dared to say anything. Only those who didn't know the inside story would dare to be so bold and speak so casually. Little did they know that both parties were still alive. If I hear you spouting nonsense down there, I can easily crush you to death. Forget about a puny Dowlord. Even Yuan Yu would have no choice but to obediently die once at a critical juncture like this and let the big shot vent his anger. The Shui Tu King said in a low voice, "There's no point in fighting here. The ruins of the primordial demon court are right in front of us. Won't we know any secrets once we enter? Besides, the primordial demon court has fallen for a long time, and those great divine powers back then should no longer care. There won't be any fatal secrets. With the wealth of the heavenly court, anything that leaks out from the cracks of their fingers is enough to feed us." Also, that group of bald donkeys took another path. It seems that they entered from the side hall. Also, Ro's remaining corpses ran ahead of us. If we were any later, they would have picked up all the benefits. That's right. Yuan Yu slapped his thigh and said, "Those Ro remnants were able to bypass the dangerous sealed dream demonic soil and enter the ruins of the demon court. This means that there must be something inside that they want. That must be something good. We can't let these destruction demon disciples succeed and endanger the heavenly realms." Yes. In order to protect the heavenly realms, we must not let the Ro remnants succeed. Not even if it falls into the hands of those bald donkeys. Get out of the way, let me see which way we can enter. The group walked towards the main hall. Just as they approached the main hall, they saw the horizontal board that had fallen into the dust and weed. Behind the charred black and silent part of the divine text, there were 1 or 2 spots of emerald green sprouting. The spots of emerald green carried a soul-stirring divinity, and behind the charred board, it was like freshly washed jade. The primordial demon text written on the horizontal board was burned by the divine fire, and its divinity was extinguished, turning black. However, there was life sprouting behind it, full of divinity and soul-stirring vitality. It felt like it was not a little green sprout, but the recovery of a universe. Walking here, everyone could not hide their amazement. Not to mention how far life was from germinating in the ultimate. In fact, life here was quite a distance from normal. In the ultimate, they had never seen normal life. It was either twisted or strange. This was the ruins of a celestial palace. The damaged plaque of the archaic demon court's throne hall, coupled with the devastation of war and the destruction of this place, the divine wood that was made into the plaque, after being burned by an unknown divine fire, actually sprouted. The primordial demon court existed in such a long time that it was impossible to connect these two extreme, contrasting things like the sprout of the divine tree. Am I seeing things? Someone rubbed his eyes. For a Tao Lord to do such a thing, it meant that he really suspected that he was seeing things. Why is there a divine tree sprouting? Could this not be the ultimate forbidden land, but some divine land, immortal realm? What kind of divine wooden board is this? How can it germinate after being silent for eons? Fan Wujie turned around and saw Yuan Yu searching around as well. He was speechless and said, "Old Taoist, what are you doing now?" Yuan Yu whispered, "Lower your voice, I'm looking for the triple brilliance godly water. Without it, how did this horizontal board grow on the ground? Legend has it that when the primordial Lord of Heaven's purified bottle fell on the ground, it sprouted within a few days. I thought it was a rumor made up by the heavens against Guanyin Bodhisattva. Who would have thought? This is actually true." Ajati jogged over and prepared to collect the horizontal board. However, he could not get close to the horizontal board at all. Ajati used a few escape techniques, but his speed in the void was like that of an ant crawling. He desperately circulated his arcane energy, and with great difficulty, he managed to retreat. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said, "This thing is not a divine tree, but the embryonic form of a world, and that sprout is a budding world. Why did the primordial demon court hang this thing at the door?" Yuan Yu's eyes flashed. "This is the builder tree. This board is a divine wood cut from the divine tree of the builder tree. The builder tree is also known as the world tree. It can support a world. The space-time inside is definitely distorted. It seems that the size of the Hall of Enlightenment is larger than we imagined. I have never heard of the builder tree being reborn from cuttings. When the builder tree was made into a horizontal board and suppressed in the Hall of Enlightenment, it was definitely dead. For it to sprout now, it seems strange no matter how I look at it. I feel like there is something going on here." Yuan Yu said in a low voice, "The primordial demon court might not have fallen here for a simple reason. Perhaps someone has reused the primordial demon court. Who has the guts to live in the ruins of the celestial heavens? Aren't they afraid of shortening their lifespan?" Fan Wujie clicked his tongue. Yuan Yu glanced at him and asked, "What do you think? Which garden did we just come out from?" "You mean?" Fan Wujie cautiously pointed at his head. "In the demonic earth of the sealed domain, Old Man Corpse God said that it was the Garden of Solitude, and also the Sky of Freedom. The Sky of Freedom is the place where the demon ancestor of slaughter created life and searched for good fortune. Old Man Corpse God is not a simple person, and the things he knows are not simple either. We escaped from the Garden of Solitude, but who said that we escaped from the Sky of Freedom? The Garden of Solitude can be the Sky of Freedom. Why can't the primordial demon court be the Sky of Freedom? The demon ancestor used the Garden of Buddha to raise chi, and used the palace of the demon emperor to do other things. He really has a wide range of hobbies. How many worlds are there in the Sky of Freedom?" Fan Wujie looked at the bottomless door of the Hall of Enlightenment, and he couldn't help but feel his legs turn to jelly. Who knew what the demon ancestor was raising in the back? "Demon ancestor, can't you have some other hobbies?" "River sticks. Sorry, this old man likes to raise birds and insects. Raising small animals is my hobby." With the style of the demon ancestor, I'm afraid that even the place where Ro is sealed will be used. Yuan Yu sighed and said, even if we go further into the forbidden area where Demon Ancestor is sealed Ro, I won't be surprised. Can't you say something nice? Fan Wujie sighed and said. Looking at the vast primordial demon court in front of him, Fan Wujie's eyes no longer had the mighty and domineering look from before. Instead, he was reduced to a small vegetable garden in the backyard of the demon ancestor of slaughter. Fan Wujie inexplicably thought of an old man who looked like an old farmer, picking up things that people didn't want before the world was broken. What Buddha's garden? The backyard of the Emperor of Heaven. The palace of the former Emperor of Heaven. The courtyard where the three pure ones stayed. When they found a ruin, they would put it away, wash it in the ultimate ruins, and then hide it, raising some small pets, small animals, and so on. Thinking of this, the style seemed to be inexplicably a little off, and in Yuan Yu's imagination, the young river Styx was holding two swords, like a tyrannical street tiger, blocking the door of the Buddha ancestor and the Tao Lord, with a cold face against the two swords, extorting and forcibly taking people's things, and then hiding in the ultimate ruins. With the help of the Blood Sea, he created all kinds of strange and bizarre monsters, preparing to counterattack the world and dominate the world. Wearing a white coat, River Styx, who was devoutly researching in the laboratory of the Sky of Freedom, scratched his neck and continued to look down at the Blood Sea petri dish. Chapter 1270. Poyamakuo led the Azura tribe deep into the Hall of Enlightenment. They all had many wounds on their bodies, and they had even lost 2 people. Poyamakuo's aura was much weaker than when she was in Poyamakuo's heart and had recovered to her peak with the help of Dara's divine treasure. Along the way, they had experienced countless dangers and fights. Carefree heaven, the ruins of the Hall of Enlightenment. Poyamakuo's tone was complicated. The ruins of the Hall of Enlightenment were modified by the slaughtered demon ancestor to contain the species of the Blood Sea that the great divine arts didn't want. This was the breeding ground for countless strange monsters. The river Styx demon ancestor had a strange and fierce temperament. In the past, he created the Azura tribe but abandoned us because we weren't the seeds of the devil Tao that he had envisioned. Back then, the Chaos Demon ancestor's spirit and body were split into 2. The evil thoughts and evil energy of the Chaos Devil God became the Ro Demon ancestor, and Pangu's essence blood, which was contaminated by the devil energy, turned into the Blood Sea. Originally, when the Ro Demon ancestor entered the Blood Sea, it would give birth to the one and only supreme demon ancestor of the devil Tao, the Chaos Demon ancestor. However, Pangu's essence blood was blessed by Pangu and gave birth to a consciousness. After receiving a trace of Pangu's water ancestor's dharma, the river Styx demon ancestor was born. He cut out the impurities in his body that were contaminated by the Chaos Devil God and gave birth to the Azura tribe. Therefore, the Azura tribe was despised by the river Styx demon ancestor. The river Styx demon ancestor didn't think that we, who were contaminated by the Chaos Devil God, were the seeds of the Devil Tao that he wanted to create. Therefore, even though we were born from the Blood Sea, he still preferred the human race. He thought that the human race was the natural seed of the Devil Tao and was qualified to develop his orthodoxy. However, we were just the remains of the Chaos Devil God, the orphans of the old Devil Tao. When the Azura tribe was at its most lost, it was the Ro demon ancestor who took us in. He was born from the spirit of the Chaos demon ancestor and inherited the evil thoughts and resentment of the 3,000 Chaos Devil God. The few great Azura kings of the Azura tribe were all born from his impurities. They were his natural deployment. Therefore, the king chose to follow the Ro demon ancestor in an attempt to occupy the Pangu universe and create the era of the Chaos clan. Unfortunately, after the fall of Pangu, he left behind a contingency plan that allowed the river Styx demon ancestor to be born and create the new Devil Tao of the Pangu universe. The plan of the 3,000 Chaos Devil God fell through. the one and only demon ancestor who was originally expected to inherit the legacy of the 3,000 Chaos Devil God, the Chaos Demon Ancestor, was divided into two by the spirit and the body into the Road Demon Ancestor and the River Styx Demon Ancestor. After the River Styx Demon Ancestor was born, he cut off the impurities of the Chaos Devil God and turned them into the Asura tribe. He cut off the legacy of the Chaos Demon Ancestor and thought that he inherited the Pangu clan. After the creation of the world, the strength of the Road Demon Ancestor was not enough to suppress the Pangu clan. This allowed the 3 pure ones, the 12 witches, and the ancient gods to gradually grow. This led to the premature end of our era, Payamoko said fiercely. Before the destruction of the Chaos world, the Road Demon Ancestor sensed the secrets of heaven and knew that the last opportunity of the Chaos Devil Tao was about to arrive. When the Chaos world was destroyed, the Road Demon Ancestor could use the karma of the 3,000 Chaos Devil God and confirm the oath and curse of the 3,000 Chaos Devil God before they died to prove the great Tao of destruction. With the help of the Chaos world's shattered destiny, he could transform into the Destruction Devil God and completely destroy the Pangu universe. Then, he would open the universe of our Devil Tao on the remains of the Chaos world. Unfortunately, the River Styx Demon Ancestor also predicted this. Before the Chaos world was destroyed, he used the body of the ultimate demon god as bait to lure the Road Demon Ancestor into the ultimate sea. He suppressed the Road Demon Ancestor and used the ultimate to seal the Destruction Devil God. In order to save the Road Demon Ancestor, the king and the other old subordinates led us into the ultimate. King Vemakaitra even broke into the seal alone. In the end, the king sacrificed himself and was drowned and killed by the River Styx Demon Ancestor with the Blood Sea. But the other great Asura kings broke into the depths of the ultimate. Before he died, the king Vemakaitra saw the method the River Styx Demon Ancestor used to seal the Road Demon Ancestor. He also determined the way to break the seal. Poya Mokuo glanced at the group of Asura demon followers and said excitedly, "That's why we willingly allowed ourselves to be trapped in the calamity eye of the Blood Sea and the immeasurable calamity. It's all so that we could fight for this sliver of an opportunity. It's all so that we could be fully prepared to rescue the Rahu demon ancestor and establish a new era for our Asura tribe." For Asura, Poya Mokuo raised her 4 arms and said excitedly, "For the great Asura." The old subordinates of Ro, the Asura demon followers, roared. The mummy that brought Fan Wujie and Yuan Yu into Golden Turtle Island stood out. He was no longer the half-dead person he was when he first saw Yuan Yu. Now, he was still covered in green hair, but he was no longer that skinny and withered look. Instead, his entire body was surging with a strong corpse chi. He had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear, just like a tall green-haired zombie. However, this was only a change in appearance. In fact, the real essence of the mummy was still this human skin. It was just that this human skin was now inflated by the strong corpse chi. This was the difference between before and after it was inflated. If Yuan Yu was here, he would definitely be very surprised, because he originally thought that the mutation of the dried corpse's human skin was a common characteristic of the survivors of Ro who cultivated the destruction demon path. But now it seemed that this was just a special case. After the other destruction demon followers obtained the fortune of the Poya divine treasure and escaped from the state of imminent destruction, they returned to normal. The indescribable state that they had with the destruction great Tao disappeared. But after the dried corpse was replenished by the fortune, it only inflated the human skin a little. The essence was still the human skin that was imprinted with the destruction great Tao. It was extremely fragile and abnormally terrifying. Did this mean that the nature of destruction of the dried corpse was even higher than the leader of the destruction demon followers, Poya Mokuo? Also, the dried corpse's final Tao understanding made Yuan Yu feel threatened. But when the Poya king's heart was in the divine treasure, a destruction demon follower who had unleashed the final Tao understanding, was eliminated by the combined forces of the Buddha sect and the Devil sect without any Dara's help. In comparison, there seemed to be some difference in power. The green-haired zombie asked, "Leader, is there anything here that can save Lord Ro? Are you questioning why I would take such a huge risk and enter deep into this devilish domain?" Poya Mokuo said coldly, "Why did I not hesitate to use the remaining blood chi of the king's corpse to enter this place?" The green-haired zombie bowed his head and said, "I don't dare. Rise." Looking at the green-haired zombie kneeling in fear, Poya Mokuo waved her hand and said, "It's time to tell you some things. The plan to save Lord Ro was exchanged with the lives of the great Azura kings. At that time, the kings realized that if they wanted to save Ro demon ancestor, they couldn't attract the attention of the great divine arts practitioners. So the weaker the person carrying out the plan, the better. If Dara moved, it would attract the attention of Dara from the three religions, and even Ancestor River Styx. So the more inconspicuous the person carrying out the plan, the better. Furthermore, the ruins of End hides a huge secret. It is a place that many Dara and the great divine arts practitioners pay special attention to. The person carrying out the plan can't come from the outside world. Instead, he has to hide in the ruins of End until the great divine arts practitioners don't notice him. The green-haired zombie said in realization, So His Majesty raised a hand and protected us, making us the only hope. But to enter the deepest part of the ruins of End, where Ro demon ancestor is sealed, even Dara wouldn't be able to do it. The kings paid a heavy price to enter the ruins of End. How could we do it? An Azura demon follower raised an objection. Ever since the endless calamity, the Azura race had been united against the destruction demon follower who suffered under the blood calamity. But now, Poya Mokuo told them that their sacrifice was only for the sake of a hopeless plan. Even with the loyalty of the Azura race, they couldn't bear such a blow. Poya Mokuo growled in a low voice, "The great Azura kings already have a complete plan. Do you not believe in His Majesty? Compared to the sacrifice of His Majesty and the great Azura kings, our sacrifice is nothing." The speaker quickly bowed and admitted his mistake. Poya Mokuo said calmly, "The way to enter the ruins of End is here. This is the only place where many ancient species of the chaos are preserved. The Hall of Illumination of the Sky Demon Palace has preserved many ancient species of the ancient demon clan. These are all strange species created by Ancestor River Styx in ancient times. At that time, Ancestor River Styx's Tao of creation wasn't so crazy, it didn't challenge the limits of creation. Ancestor River Styx was busy expanding the range of species, so the species he created were relatively peaceful and ancient. After Ancestor Hutu opened the reincarnation cycle, Ancestor River Styx's Tao of creation became more and more extreme. The species he created became more and more challenging the limits of creation and life. That was why the powerful beings forced Ancestor River Styx to seal his creations in the ruins of End, in the sky of freedom where he experimented with creation. Due to the changes in the environment, many ancient species were no longer suitable for breeding in the outside world. Therefore, Ancestor River Styx moved some of them to the immemorial demon court. Many ancient species here are extinct in the outside world. Among them is the number 1 Nanta ancient ant in the universe. Nantua ancient ant. The green-haired corpse was shocked. Some of the destruction demon disciples frowned and scratched their heads in confusion. Some had never heard of this ancient species. Poya Mokuo explained, "It's normal that you haven't heard of this species. The Nantua ancient ant was already on the verge of extinction when the immemorial demon court ruled the world. It was said that it was hunted by its natural enemies. In the immemorial demon era, this ancient species was very common. They are good at piercing through restrictions and can drill through anything. According to the legends, they can even drill holes in the universe and can even crawl to an even more ancient era. The most famous characteristic of this ancient species is that it can't be trapped. Even a powerful being would find it difficult to suppress this species. It looks like an ordinary ant, but it can drill holes in the universe and drill into the void. It can even crawl into the depths of the universe. As long as there is a flaw in the operation of restrictions, it can drill through. It's an ancient species that can't be suppressed. Only such a species would be able to find the flaw in the Rahu Fiend ancestor's seal and bring us into the sealed land. At this time, someone asked in a weak voice, if this ancient species can't be suppressed and sealed, how did demon ancestor trap them here? Poya Mokuo said lightly, they are ancestor River Styx's creations, so it's easy for demon ancestor to trap them. Moreover, the Nantua ancient ant has a terrifying natural enemy that hunts them down. As long as one escapes the ultimate, it will be hunted down by the natural enemy. Naturally, they don't dare to escape the ultimate. The green-haired zombie shook his head and said, it's not a problem how River Styx demon ancestor traps them, but how do we trap them? Let me ask you, if the Nantua ancient ants are not restricted, how do we capture them? Even if we are lucky enough to catch two, how do we preserve them? Great Master Fajing looked at the purple gold alms bowl in his hand with a strange expression. He saw that the 9 transformations dragon soul worm grass, preserved in the purple gold alms bowl, had been bitten off a small piece. On the tail of the spirit grass that looked like a dragon worm, there were 2 or 3 tiny white insects which were like 1 or 2 small ants. An old monk beside him was so distressed that his lips were trembling. He wailed, my 9 transformations dragon soul worm grass. This is a 5 transformations dragon soul worm grass, the king of spiritual roots in ancient times. Master Fa Jing was so anxious that his eyes turned red. After the destruction of ancient times, I don't know if there are still such treasured herbs growing. This is a spiritual herb that can allow people to live another life. It's known as a quasi-immortal herb. Many people from the mystic door evaluated it above the immortal herb. After all, the immortal herb can only allow people to live forever, but this spiritual herb can allow people to live another life. It's also known as a medicine for regret. Any problems in the foundation of cultivation can be made up for by living another life. It can be said to be a medicine for regret on the path of cultivation. Furthermore, the true medicine for regret, the 9 transformations pill of rebirth without regrets. Legend has it that it can allow one to reincarnate to the beginning of life with their memories and start over again. One of its main ingredients is the 9 transformations dragon soul worm grass. Legend has it that this spiritual herb was created by the River Styx demon ancestor to challenge the order of reincarnation. Therefore, it was envied by the heavens. At the beginning of its growth, ghosts from the netherworld secretly stole the essence of the spiritual herb and ate it dry. There was also a legend that when this spiritual herb transformed, it needed to take root in the netherworld. At this time, the ghosts and gods from the netherworld would see it and cut it off, therefore, it was extremely rare in the world. After the primordial world was broken, there were no more rumors about it. Since Master Fa Jing entered the palace ruins, he had encountered countless ancient and strange species. It was unbelievable that he found a few of them. A group of people risked their lives to snatch one from the mouth of the ancient plague locust. Fa Jing cherished it like an eyeball and carefully stored it in the purple gold alms bowl. He didn't expect the primordial spiritual treasure to be invaded. It was bitten off by this strange insect. Fa Jing observed the insects carefully and howled, it's actually the Nantua ancient ants. The Nantua ancient ants that are number 1 in breaking restrictions and can travel in space. The old monks then put away their distressed expressions and asked Fa Jing carefully, Senior brother, how much is this thing worth? What the F***ck is it worth? Fa Jing stomped his feet and said, it's a pest, a great disaster of the primordial world. No wonder the seniors said in the ancient books that the spiritual pills and spiritual herbs of the primordial world can't be placed randomly. If they are placed for a long time, they will grow worms. So it means that the spiritual herbs that are placed for a long time will attract the Nantua ancient ants, and they will eat away at them. This is a famous pest in the primordial world. My precious medicine, my peerless medicine for regret. Isn't this thing extinct long ago? Back then, this thing must have eaten away some treasure of the primordial demon court's Nan Wangong. It incurred the wrath of this peerless demon god. He ordered his bloodline descendant, the Fu Count bird, to exterminate the Nantua ancient ants whenever it saw them. He also gave the Fu Count bird the talent to kill these insects. From then on, the Fu Count bird became this ant's natural enemy. It traveled to the primordial world and exterminated the Nantua ancient ants. Nantua ancient ants. Yuan Yu had a strange expression. He looked at the two white dots on the builder tree and said softly, "Why are they still here? Didn't Nan Wangong exterminate them?" It's not strange that it can get close to the builder tree. After all, it's an ancient species with the best escape technique. It's said that it's a strange species created by ancestor river stick. It was exterminated during the time when the primordial world was ruled by the primordial demon court. At that time, the great medic of the demon race, Nan Wangong Bo Fu of the primordial demon court, created their natural enemy, the Fu Count bird. He searched the primordial world and exterminated them. Fan Wujie asked doubtfully, "Nan Wangong is a great medic of the primordial demon race. Why did he have a problem with a small ant?" Nan Wangong. He was a great medic of the primordial world. He was one of the two giants of the demon race, along with the Kuanping patriarch. One of them led the demon race's celestial generals, and the other led the demon race's celestial lords. They were the left and right arms of the demon king, the emperor of heaven. However, when the primordial demon court was destroyed, they betrayed the demon king. It's said that the demon king was afraid of them and suppressed them secretly. Some say that if the demon king hadn't cut off his own arm, the emperor of heaven might not have been able to replace the demon court with the heaven. Yuan Yu sighed and said, "However, there's another legend about the Nantua ancient ant. It's said that ancestor river Styx created this species to make things difficult for Nan Wangong. Nan Wangong was afraid of his wife. Every time he came home with women, he would be punished to kneel to the ant. Ancestor river Styx took pleasure in his misfortune, so he created a strange species that even Nan Wangong couldn't defeat. It's the Nantua ancient ant. He secretly instigated it to Nan Wangong's wife. From then on, Nan Wangong hated the Nantua ancient ant to the bone, and he wanted to exterminate it. However, his wife stopped him from doing so. It wasn't until the primordial demon court was established that Nan Wangong used his bloodline to create a kind of demon bird, the talisman bird, and exterminated it. Just to mess with Nan Wangong, ancestor river Styx created a heaven-defying species? Fan Wujie looked at the sky speechlessly. Were the great mediums so free? Just to vent his anger, Nan Wangong was willing to exterminate such a heaven-defying species. Yuan Yu sighed. Fan Wujie rested his chin on his hand and watched the show. What happened after that? After that, Nan Wangong thought that he had vented his anger, but he didn't expect ancestor river Styx to be even better and fall into his trap. Ancestor river Styx secretly created a rumor that Nan Wangong had been merciful and left behind countless descendants to breed the talisman bird race. He even revealed this to Nan Wangong's wife. Then, the grape rack in Nan Wangong's backyard collapsed. Even when the primordial demon court was destroyed, Nan Wangong didn't do anything. Everyone said that ancestor river Styx started with Nan Wangong's weakness and eradicated one of the primordial demon court's arms. He was known as the 34th best strategist of the primordial world. At the beginning of the game, he started with the weakness of human nature, calculated countless eons, and unexpectedly got rid of a great medium. Originally, I thought that although Nan Wangong was temporarily unlucky, he still got rid of a major threat. Now, it seems that ancestor River Styx also specially raised a group of Nantua ancient ants in the ultimate for Nan Wangong's wife. Back then, Nan Wangong didn't make it in time for the last battle against the liches and demons, so he should be kneeling on the ants. Although Nan Wangong's wife is reasonable and will not interfere with official business, as long as she is temporarily entangled, Nan Wangong will not dare to make a move. And temporarily entangling a woman is too easy. Fan Wujie couldn't believe it. Just for a woman, Nan Wangong even lost the primordial demon court? Just because he has to kneel on the ants? Is kneeling on the ants more important than the survival of the demon court? You don't understand. Yuan Yu said faintly, kneeling on the ants is related to Nan Wangong's life and death. Compared to that, what is the primordial demon court? To control the Nantua ancient ants, you have to use the skeleton of the Bo Fu demon bird as a vessel. Only then can the Nantua ancient ants fear the aura of their natural enemy and not dare to escape. Payamakuo said confidently. Nan Wangong knelt on the Nantua ancient ants for hundreds of yuanhui before he came up with a way to restrain this ancient species. From then on, he could kneel freely. Unfortunately, River Styx later created the cultivation path of the Nantua ancient ant. They could use Nan Wangong's aura to cultivate and refine themselves to become smaller and smaller, making it harder to deal with and easier to escape into the void. In the end, they could cultivate into the Nantua ant king, a species of the void that could escape anything. This was because River Styx created the Nantua ant king and the Nantua ant queen, two even stranger species. One was a void species that could not be restrained, while the other could reproduce the Nantua ancient ants and evolve their bloodline, making them more and more compatible with their natural enemy. That was why Nan Wangong was trapped for dozens of yuanhui, preventing him from interfering in the war between the shamans and demons. In the end, Nan Wangong completely lost his temper and used his identity as a great mediator to change the primordial world's heavenly Tao, making it impossible for the Nantua ancient ants to survive. Only then did this ancient species become extinct. Chapter 1271. Staring at the Nantua ancient ants on the sprout, Yuan Yu's eyes were filled with curiosity and he murmured, "Maybe I know why the destruction demon followers, the remnants of Ro, wanted to enter this place. The Nantua ancient ants are the best in the art of escape. Their innate skill allows them to break through all kinds of seals. This ancient species created by the slaughtered demon ancestor is able to find the weakest part of the seals. In order to enter the forbidden land where Ro is sealed, one must have the help of this mysterious species." The Shui Tu King's eyes darkened. "I remember that we can use the Nantua ancient ants to craft a type of restriction-breaking talisman, using this species' innate skill to break through the seals. Are these destruction demon followers trying to craft this talisman?" Yuan Yu shook. "The place where Ro is sealed is not some ordinary seal, it is a shackle formed by the returning ruins demon god's mortal body, a seal that contains the entire returning ruins power. The returning ruins demon god's essence is entangled with the destruction demon god, and through the seals of the great presences, it turned into a shackle that locked Ro's Yuan Shun. In other words, they are using Ro's power as the shackle to lock its Yuan Shun. That place is the deepest place in the returning ruins. I even suspect that Dara Heaven is there as well. How can a mere restriction-breaking talisman be able to enter such a place? If you want to enter the sealed area, you must have the best escape art in the heavens, the best calculation in the heavens, the best killing art in the heavens, and the best speed in the heavens, using the Nantua ancient ant to find the flaw of the seal. Then, using the best calculation in the heavens, you must calculate the time and changes of the flaw. Then, using the best killing art in the heavens, you must slash the weak point of the seal. Finally, you must seize that fleeting moment and use the best speed in the heavens to escape into the flaw. Only in this way can we create a weak chance on the seal so that insignificant existences like us can sneak in. The best art of escape, other than the Nantua ancient ant's innate skill, can only be achieved by those who have mastered the art of transformation to the great five elements escape, or those who have mastered the innate yin and yang qi and the five-colored divine light. The best calculation in the returning ruins can only be achieved by Emperor Shi's innate and acquired 8 trigrams, the ancient heavens river diagram and Luo Shu, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors Lianshan Huaitsang Zhou Yi, Ziwei the great emperor's Ziwei Do number, Qimen Duanjia, Lu Ren divine lesson, and Tai Yi divine number. I was able to locate the flaws of Dara's remains with the 9 palaces flying stars, but with my cultivation in divination, I'm not even worthy of carrying the shoes of those people up there. The best killing treasure in the returning ruins is the most difficult. Since ancient times, only the returning ruins' immortal execution formation and the Bell of Chaos can be called the best killing treasure in the returning ruins. Luckily, the best killing treasure in the returning ruins is the limit that the returning ruins can bear. It's much weaker than the returning ruins, so you only need to use Dara's full power. That way, you only need to borrow an innate spirit treasure that specializes in killing, such as the heavenly demonic blood god saber, the sea-calming divine pearl, the male and female swords, the mirror of yin-yang. Every time you mentioned a name, the faces of the group of demon lords turned ghastly. In the end, the leader of the lifeless sect had no choice but to interrupt him and said, "If we could get our hands on any of the supreme treasures of any of the sects, I would have killed them long ago." Cult Master Chao Nu, be serious. The Shui Tu King interrupted. Yuan Yu pouted and shook his head. If you could summon the immortal execution flying knife or the projection of Yuan-Tu and Avicii's 2 swords, or even a trace of its aura, you might be able to execute a strike like that. If I could get a trace of the aura of the spirit treasure that demon ancestor carries with him, would I still be able to survive in the returning ruins with my abilities? I would have gone to the boundless sea of blood to hug demon ancestor's thigh. An old demon's words were crude, but they were not crude. Yuan Yu spread his hands and said, "Then there's nothing we can do. Don't be fooled by the fact that the remnants of Ro have Dara's corpse in their hands. Even if they burn Poya's corpse, they won't be able to unleash the number 1 strike in the returning ruins. The number 1 speed in the returning ruins is easy, you just need to reach the speed of light. Fan Brat's cosmic light escape art, Shui Tu King's blood transformation escape art, and Ajati's 9 underworlds escape art are all possible. The only thing is that the number 1 speed in the returning ruins is the basic requirement to enter the seal. If you can't reach the speed of light, then don't even think about breaking into the seal's flaw. You'll die even if you enter. We don't need to think about anything else, someone will prepare everything for us." The Shui Tu King analyzed calmly. Yuan Yu shook his head and said, "Don't count on the destroying demon disciples to be defenseless and be used by us. In fact, after being polished by the Aeon's calamity, their plan is already flawless. There's no chance for us to be used. If we want to play with them, we have to have our own trump cards." Ajati stared at the Nantua ancient ant on the sprout of the builder tree. He tried to form a black-green hand with his primordial spirit and pinched the Nantua ancient ant from afar. The black-green hand turned into a rolling black cloud, gathering and dispersing unpredictably as it tried to grab the Nantua ancient ant. However, the closer it got to the sprout of the builder tree, the smaller the hand became. The closer it got to the builder tree, the greater the curvature of the space. In the end, it turned into a mustard seed. Ajati desperately opened up the primordial spirit hand. He felt that his second primordial spirit had already expanded to its maximum size, covering the sky and holding a small world in its palm. However, when it was 3 feet away from the sprout of the builder tree, the primordial spirit hand was already like a speck of dust. If it wanted to move forward, it would become even smaller. At this moment, something seemed to fly up from the sprout of the builder tree. The demon monarchs could only sense that something was approaching Ajati's second primordial spirit. However, it was only when it was about to reach the primordial spirit hand that they saw the speck of dust rapidly expanding. In the end, when it reached the position of Ajati's primordial spirit hand, it was already the size of a mosquito. It was like a mosquito. It flapped its wings and buzzed, but the primordial spirit hand at the same position was only the size of a speck of dust. The mosquito was thousands of times bigger. One had to know that the size of the palm formed by the second primordial spirit could cover the sky and the sun, and it could even hold a small world. Compared to that, how big was the mosquito? The demon monarchs could not help but feel their scalps go numb. Ajati was sweating profusely, and he could not help but shake his head and say, "This builder tree is indeed the world tree. Its main body is probably as big as a boundless universe, and the surface of the leaf might be a boundless continent. Who knows how many terrifying monsters live there, but we just cannot see them. If we recklessly enter that world, we might alarm countless strange ancient species. The risk is too great." Fan Wujia could not help but interrupt, "But those two Nanto ancient ants seem to be lying on the leaf of the builder tree. If we can't even see those terrifying monsters on the builder tree, then how big are these two ants that we can see?" The demon monarchs instantly lost their voices, and they ran madly toward the gate of the Hall of Translucence. "What the hell? What the hell?" the Shue-Tu King said anxiously. "So the most terrifying monster is right in front of us, and we were just discussing how to catch it. The Nantua ancient ants are the first in the universe. We don't know how long those two ants have lived on the builder tree, but they most likely grew up with the builder tree, so they have the characteristics of the builder tree. They still look like ants, but their standard is the builder tree, and in front of them we are the ants." Yuan Yu's face was pale, and he said, "This ancient species created by the demon ancestor is incomparably mysterious, and it has an unpredictable ability to evolve. I already said that a species that can survive under the knees of the Nan Wang Kung is not that simple. It most likely has an unparalleled ability to evolve. They grew up with the builder tree, parasitizing it, and using the builder tree as a reference to grow, using the builder tree as nourishment and food. Although they still look like ants, they are already an extremely terrifying monster." The Shue-Tu King calmed his nerves and he said, "I made a mistake. I made a mistake." Fan Wujie's face was gloomy and he said, "The builder tree is the world tree, and growing up with the world tree, how great is that? Moreover, the species created by the demon ancestor are probably a little strange. For example, the Nantua ancient ants have a terrifying ability to evolve. They grew up with the builder tree, using the world tree as a reference. Every life form has a growth limit, and of course, the Nantua ancient ants have one as well, but the scary thing about the Nantua ancient ants is that their growth limit is a relative limit, a concept that they have compared to other existences. The Nantua ancient ants are indeed ants, but if they grow up with other powerful species, their concept of ants will deviate, and they will grow into ants that are relative to those powerful species. If there was also a Nantua ancient ant lying on Pangu's head when he created the world, and it gave birth to an ant that was relative to Pangu, it will probably grow into an innate god." At this thought, everyone shuddered, and they could not imagine what kind of existence the ants on Pangu's head were. The creation of the river Styx demon ancestor is too strange. I wonder if anyone has noticed that the Nantua ancient ants have such terrifying characteristics. Yuan Yu hugged himself in fear. The limit of this species depends on the environment it grows in. It has a clear definition of its position, and it will definitely grow to that level in whatever environment it grows in, even though it sees itself as an ant. But sometimes, ants in certain environments can easily destroy other worlds. This must be another crazy experiment by the demon ancestor. An old demon swore, "The demon ancestor is too scary. He will definitely destroy the universe. He will cause an earth-shattering disaster. As expected of the slaughtered demon ancestor, his mental state is really dangerous. Is this the demonic nature? The slaughtered demon ancestor's demonic nature is very strange. He seems to have a curiosity to destroy everything and an extremely evil drive. There is always a kind of madness that does not care about the consequences and does not care about anything. I seem to have grasped a trace of the supreme demonic nature, and my understanding of the cultivation method passed down by the demon ancestor has improved by another level. The great freedom heaven contains the supreme demonic nature of the demon ancestor, and the existences here are all strange and unpredictable. A ferocious strange bird with incomparably gorgeous feathers, but its aura was not at all peaceful. Instead, it was abnormally fierce, and it lowered its head to count the ants under its knees. 1, 2, 3. It had to be careful at all times. It could not let these weak ants kneel to death. But it also had to pay attention, lest these species, which had the concept of being ants compared to it, burrow into the void and escape. It had a very terrifying psychological shadow over the consequences of one kneeling to death and another kneeling to escape. These damned ants, damned troublesome, they had the strange ability of space, and could often seize the moment when the strange bird was not paying attention, break through its magical power, and disappear without a trace. But they could not use too much force, and if the strange bird used its full demon power to suppress them, they would die in front of it. When that time came, the strange bird would be the unlucky one. These damned species were specially created by a certain existence with a bad taste to see it in distress. The most terrible thing was that these ants had an astonishing ability to adapt and evolve, so their ability was constantly changing and adapting to its magic power and aura, so that the strange bird could never find a suitable strength and method to suppress them forever. Therefore, in order to make things difficult for it, someone had indeed put in a lot of effort. The strange bird swore to block the entrance of the Blood Sea in the next Yuhui to cause trouble. When that time comes, I will also bring a few capable brothers. I think that Cocky Peacock is a good choice. When that time comes, I will force him to block the door for me, or he will eat these ants for me. They are evolving too fast. If I don't get rid of them now, it will be troublesome if my wife catches a few more of them next time. River Styx is bullying me because I am not as proficient in the path of creation as he is. Unfortunately, I am indeed not proficient. Next time, I will help the Buddhists beat up his little brat. Subduing demons is the duty of my generation. Baba. I am a great demon, a great sage of the demon race. Exterminating demons and protecting the Tao. Yes, exterminating demons and protecting the Tao is the duty of my generation. River Styx, I will beat your Tao of evil to the ground. Inside the Hall of Enlightenment was an ancient world. With a flourish of the prehistoric era, Fa Jing held the purple gold alms bowl, his large hands covering the mouth of the alms bowl tightly. The corners of his eyes were twitching wildly. Those who knew him well could see that this big monk was on the verge of losing his temper. Fa Jing was trembling with anger. This thing? How do I kill it with this thing? He had already tried countless methods. He used the chanting of Buddhist light, used the great power of subduing demons to suppress it, used the power of the purple gold alms bowl to imprison it, used the power of the connate spiritual treasure to subdue it, used the virtue-purifying water to dissolve the spiritual roots of the precious medicine, and used dozens of methods to hide things. However, every time he tried to chase away the two hateful ants, as long as he shifted his gaze slightly, he would always see the two ants lying on the precious medicine that was worth billions and chewing on it. It was as if the spiritual medicine could grow worms on its own. In the end, Fa Jing had no choice but to arrange for two old monks to keep an eye on the precious spiritual medicine. However, the two Nantua ancient ants acted as if they did not see them. They swaggered into the spiritual medicine and chewed on it from the inside out. As Fa Jing's methods became more and more ruthless, the ants seemed to be provoking him. At first, there were only 2 of them. Later, when Fa Jing realized that something was wrong and broke open the spiritual medicine to check, there were already more than 10 of them. A small group of Nantua ancient ants was chewing on the spiritual medicine. He could not catch them, nor could he trap them. Even if he hardened his heart and refined them to death along with the spiritual medicine, they could also burrow into the void in time and could not be hurt at all. Fa Jing felt tired in his heart. He grabbed the spiritual medicine that he had painstakingly snatched from the hands of the ancient mutants and stuffed it into his mouth. As he choked, he stiffened his neck and swallowed. Looking at the old monk beside him who wanted to say something but stopped, Fa Jing said angrily, "Do you think I want to? I can't waste it on those pests. Eat with me, your senior brother." The old monk stammered, "Senior brother, every medicine has its poison." Many of these ancient spiritual medicines were specially created by Dara after calculating a certain medicinal effect. Dara refines medicine according to the medicinal effect, but the refinement of medicine now is piecing together the ingredients. "What do you mean?" Fa Jing asked. "Senior brother, there are vines growing out of your ears." The old monk pointed at the purple vine that was rustling out of Fa Jing's ears and said, "It seems to be the heart-piercing, bone-eating, brain-eating purple-blooded vine. Senior brother, allow me to help you pluck it." Therefore, many of the spiritual medicines in ancient times were specially cultivated by Dara to breed a certain medicinal effect. Unlike the spiritual medicines of today, which have adapted to nature, the ancient spiritual medicines have many strange habits and characteristics, and even more so have many strange processing methods. Some have to go through special processing to obtain a certain special medicinal effect. For example, this heart-piercing, bone-eating, brain-eating purple-blooded vine must be parasitized in a certain powerful demonic beast, allowing it to devour its bones and blood. Finally, the brain is extracted as blood marrow, which grows out of the 7 orifices. After cutting open the vines, the purple blood marrow is extracted from the demonic beast's brain. It has a certain special medicinal effect, and because of the different species of demonic beast it devours, the medicinal effect will be slightly different. The old monk cut open the purple-blooded vine and looked at the purple-gold blood marrow within, praising, "The quality of the spiritual medicine cultivated by Senior Brother's brain is indeed excellent. There is a delicate fragrance of the epiphyllum and a deep Buddhist nature." Fajing could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. The Buddhist blood was dark black. The old monk sighed, "Senior brother, you should screen it before consuming it. Besides, I don't recommend you to consume it raw. After all, most spiritual medicines have a certain special medicinal effect. The medicinal effect is the same as the toxicity. Medicine is poison, and the more medicine, the more poisonous it is. There are many ancient species preserved here, and their medicinal effects are very unique and precious. It can reproduce many ancient prescriptions. But if you consume it raw without processing it, not only will it waste the spiritual medicine, but it will also easily cause a conflict between the medicinal effects. Look, isn't it poisoned?" Fajing had already recalled the many spiritual medicines he had swallowed in one gulp. He suddenly realized that the dozen stalks that contained special poisons took up a small portion of the spiritual medicines. They seemed to have been collected by this skinny old monk. Furthermore, he had obtained spiritual medicines from the mouths of ancient demonic beings and ferocious beasts. This junior brother seemed to have only dug in some strange places and used some strange methods to pluck some specific parts of the spiritual medicine. Fajing asked in a low voice, "May I know what is this junior brother's Dharma name?" The old monk had a kind expression and put his palms together. "Dharma name Wu Chen." Fajin smiled sadly. "Junior brother, are you great master Wu Chen, who is known as the king of medicine merciless hands?" In front of senior brother Fajing, I only have a superficial understanding of the Dharma. How would I dare to call myself a great master? Wu Chen was very humble. Fajing wanted to say that this junior brother's understanding of spiritual medicine seemed to be a little off. Spiritual medicine was the divine beauty of creation, the spirit of heaven and earth. In essence, it was the gathering of spirituality and spiritual energy. The medicinal effects could be easily refined and nourished one's cultivation. In essence, it was a kind of creation. That was why there were countless ferocious birds and beasts guarding it. The primordial treasured spiritual medicine that we were talking about were all fruits in essence. Peaches of immortality, ginseng fruits, yellow plums, and the lotus seeds of the green lotus of creation were all representatives of this sect. This kind of spiritual medicine was actually a fruit with great nourishment. I've never heard of any harm from eating it. Your focused spiritual root has a special characteristic. It's the kind that focuses on medicinal effects and changes in physical properties. It's a professional sect that believes that everything can be used as medicine and everything can be used as medicine. We barged into this ominous land to snatch the creation and eat the fruit. Junior brother, you're actually focusing on picking spiritual medicine that has a myriad of medicinal effects and can't be used by non-professionals. Then, you sneak into my fruit basket. Are you trying to trick me? You're trying to trick me. But when he thought of the chaotic and conflicting medicinal effects in his body that needed this professional to resolve, Fajing could only squeeze out an ugly smile and say to Wu Chen, "I'll have to trouble junior brother to detoxify me." Wu Chen went around to collect spiritual medicine and analyzed its medicinal effects, preparing to detoxify his senior brother. That small group of Nantua ancient ants lay quietly in the purple gold alms bowl, munching on the primordial fruits and treasured spiritual roots inside. Fajing looked at the 2 or 3 ants in the purple gold alms bowl. His mood had already reached a state of great peace and silence. He chanted softly, "Bodhisattva taught us to cherish the lives of ants. This calamity happened because I had the intention to kill. So Bodhisattva sent junior brother Wu Chen to enlighten me. No anger, no anger, no anger. I'm only afraid that my anger will harm Brahman, and I'll kill with a flick of my finger, falling into the void. Be compassionate, don't be stingy. Senior brother, it's done." Wu Chen fed Fajing the antidote. Fajing felt his chest loosen, and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. There were countless venomous insects the size of rice grains in the blood, but they were the main medicine to neutralize the poison. He smiled and waved at Wu Chen, saying, "Junior brother, come here. I won't beat you to death." Fajing angrily threw the purple gold alms bowl on the ground. "Eat, eat, eat. I'll eat you to death." With a ferocious expression, he rolled up his sleeves and called Wu Chen over while crushing the spiritual medicine with his feet. Payamo Kuo pushed aside the grass and looked around. His butt was in the air, and he didn't have the demeanor of a world-destroying demon. A group of Azura demons followed behind him and searched bit by bit. They had already searched for hundreds of miles, but they didn't even see a single Nantua ancient ant. Payamo Kuo was already a little nervous. This kind of ancient species comes and goes like ghosts. It's normal that we can't find any trace of them. Payamo Kuo said in a low voice, "We have already endured the immeasurable cataclysm. Why are we in such a hurry?" Payamo Kuo comforted everyone. But Payamo Kuo knew that the Buddhist and demon sects were already involved, and it was no longer the time to be silent in the Blood Sea Calamity Eye. After the plan was activated, they had to race against time because if they were late, there would be changes. They had to rush into the sealed land before Dara of the 3 sects noticed the change in the ultimate and focused on them. Payamo Kuo had prepared everything, but he was stuck at this inconspicuous step. Who knew that these ghost ants would be so hard to catch? He prepared a way to subdue the Nantua ancient ants, understood the habits of these ancient species, and was proficient in tracking them based on the traces they left behind, but he couldn't find them. What should he do if he couldn't find them? Should he go and catch a talisman bird? Payamo Kuo was going crazy. Chapter 1272. As time passed, the ancient species that appeared in the Hall of Enlightenment became more and more bizarre. Most of these species were not considered powerful, but their intrinsic divine powers were very strange. They seemed to be mixed with the thoughts of the fiend ancestor. There were all sorts of strange and unpredictable species that formed a complete and complicated ecological chain. These ecological chains represented a completely different direction of evolution from the primitive universe. Poyamoko knew that the orthodox creation of the primordial universe was in the hands of Empress Enviwa, Goddess Hutu, and even the Celestial Emperor. However, Patriarch Nether River, who had created these species, seemed to have a different understanding of creation. Therefore, the ancient species and blood sea monsters here were not divided into natal and acquired. They could not even be included in the cultivation system. They competed, hunted, killed, lived together, and parasitized. Together, they evolved into a rich and colorful ecological chain. What left them the most helpless and difficult to adapt to was the fact that as the most powerful Dowlords in the universe, they could not find their place in this ecosystem. Sometimes they could slay powerful monsters at the very top of the food chain, but other times, they would die at the hands of the most inconspicuous, weakest, and most common species. If they were bitten by a poisonous spider, they could get rid of the poison with true fire. But if they were bitten by a spider of the same species, they would turn into pus the moment they were bitten. These ancient species could not be defined by rank. Some were golden immortal level beasts, some were sky immortal level poisons, some were yang god level beasts, and some were gold pill level beasts. Ranks did not exist. Poyamatsu did not know which ancient species were connate lifeforms that even the golden immortals could not afford to provoke. In this world, some existences as weak as ants could live peacefully, but they seemed to face the malice and danger of the whole world. "We can't afford to waste time," Poyamatsu said in a low voice. "I was going to use the safest method, but now it seems that we have to take some risks." The green-haired corpse looked up at the Azura demons, who had lost 3 or 4 people, and said uneasily, "This is still the safest method? Then what is the unsafe method? We are like aliens that have entered this world. The safest method is to stay weak and do nothing, follow the rules here, and integrate ourselves into this world. Therefore, what we are facing is only a small counterattack from the ancient species that lives here to determine our position in the food chain. But there's an even more radical way to play it. We'll invade this world without caring about the consequences and finish what we have to do. Then, we'll retreat before the world attacks us," Payamakuo said seriously. "What if we can't escape from this world in time?" the green-haired zombie asked uneasily. "Then we will have to face the rebellion of the ancient species," Poyamakyo said in a deep tone. "I hope that at that time, a few of us can escape alive and continue our king's great cause and plan." Poyamakyo took out a white skull. Judging from the hollow bone and beak, it was the skull of a bird. Through the skull, one could almost see the distorted space. It was like black lines, messy with a strange rhythm, scattered in the void. It was because of this wonderful vision that the Talisman Count was able to hunt down the Nantua ancient ants everywhere, becoming the natural enemy of this species with the best escape technique. The Talisman Count couldn't escape into the void, nor could it escape through the void like the Nantua ancient ant. However, the Talisman Count had a special ability. Like spiders, they could sense the slightest movement in the void. Their perception spread out along the lines of space. Whenever the space was distorted or touched, they could sense even the slightest spatial ripple several worlds away. Then, they would instinctively eliminate the ripples that didn't match the Nantua ancient ant's innate ability. Finally, they would find the target and chase after it. After discovering the Nantua ancient ants that escaped into the void, the Talisman Count would use its long beak to peck into the void and pull the Nantua ancient ants out. Therefore, The beak of the talisman count could be used to refine artifacts that could travel through the void. As a material, it could increase the artifact's ability to travel through the void. However, it was most commonly used as a component of a flying artifact. It was responsible for piercing through the surface tension of space like a needle, causing the nearby void tension to be destroyed. This way, the flying artifact could use less power to break through the void. This sort of characteristic wasn't considered much to a small-scale flying magical artifact. But for those flying magical artifacts that carried a minor dimension or even a dimensional dimension to engage in a war between two worlds, every time they activated it, the consumption of strength was like a mountain or a sea, limitless and limitless. Thus, the ability to destroy the tension of space that was required to reduce consumption and strength was of paramount importance. Secondly, the talisman count's soul and eyeball could be used to refine an artifact that could detect spatial ripples. It was also an important part of a flying artifact. It could be called the space radar of the flying artifact. How important a radar was in the military was how important an artifact called the Celestial Finder was. It could be called a strategic resource in the war between the heavens. In the heavens, due to the objective conditions of the Realm Sea War, flying artifact was the most important. It was seen as the embodiment of the strength of the heavens in the war. During the period of time when the situation in the heavens was tense, the talisman count bird was worth billions. It was a precious material that could only be found by luck. Thus, it was hunted by the cultivators of the heavens. If it wasn't for the fact that it required the cooperation of several Dao monarchs and the risk of losing one or two people in order to hunt it, it would have gone extinct long ago. The skull of the talisman count bird is very precious. Poya Mo examined the skull and said, "Even though I had already started planning before the immeasurable aeon, I only have 2 of them. I was planning to use them to trap 1 or 2 living Nantua ants, but in order to buy more time, I had to use one of them to create an abnormal spatial ripple in the Hall of Translucence, simulating the ripple caused by the talisman count striking the space with its beak. It will cause the Nantua ants living here to become restless. We will use this chance to lock onto the target. Then, regardless of everything, we will capture some of the Nantua ants before they escape." Golden threads seeped out of Poya Mokuo's hand and seeped into the skull of the talisman count bird. The surrounding void stirred up transparent ripples. Poya Mokuo lightly flicked the skull. A destructive tribulation power like black lightning landed on the skull and instantly stimulated all of its potential. A strange illusory talisman count bird materialized. This talisman count bird had 5 colored feathers like a phoenix, but there were 5 colored runes on the feathers. This talisman count bird's feathers were messy, the runes were not smooth, and some of its feathers were even messy. Its feathers were like arrows, shooting out in all directions. Although this talisman count bird had 5 colored feathers, it was chaotic. Therefore, it wasn't a phoenix divine beast, but a ferocious talisman count bird. As soon as the illusory talisman count bird materialized, under Poya Mokuo's control, it probed into the void with its divine beak. Black threads spread out from the surrounding space, spreading out in all directions. An invisible wave of space spread out in the Hall of Translucence. Fajing, who had just beaten up his junior disciple, was calmly observing the Nantua ants in the purple gold alms bowl. Suddenly, he sensed the strangeness. The Nantua ants in the purple gold alms bowl were restless. They dug holes in the void, preparing to escape. Wait! Great Master Fajing wasn't in a hurry to be happy. Instead, his face darkened and he said in a low voice, "Someone is approaching. It's the remnants of Ro, Azura demon horde." Fajing raised his head and sensed the group of people charging over arrogantly from the sky. They had triggered the stress response of countless primordial species. A swarm of primordial plague locusts flapped their wings and flew up. There were tens of millions of them, and every single one of them was emitting the aura of pestilence. In an instant, the sky was covered, and the aura of pestilence and disease swept in all directions. Fajing had only brushed against it a little, and he could smell the stench. He could feel his armpits sweating, and his conjured body was dark and filthy. He could only praise them in his heart. The Buddhists only grazed a little, but they already felt injured and mentally exhausted. The Asura demon horde had charged in aggressively from the sky. Facing the storm of immemorial plague locusts, how could it end well? The yellow-brown aura of plague, the green-black aura of disease, the purple-black aura of filth, the gray-white aura of aging, and the gray-black aura of decay. Plague, disease, filth, aging, and decay were ignited by the tens of millions of immemorial plague locusts. A trace of Tao was triggered. The five evils Qi turned into an ancient heaven court, the incarnation of the great emperor of plague. The plague Qi turned into a huge seal. It was the seal that represented the power of the plague division of the heaven court. The plague Qi turned into the plague whip, the filth Qi turned into the plague banner, the decaying Qi turned into the coma sword, and the aging Qi turned into the headache chime. The projections of these five innate treasures floated in front of the great emperor of plague. With a single strike, a few from the Asura demon horde screamed and fell down from the sky. The others were either covered in blotches or covered in pustules. But Poyamatsu didn't care so much. He activated the power of destruction. His attainment in the Tao of destruction was even higher than the green-haired mummy. He activated the power of destruction and was about to form the final solution. Poyamatsu snarled, "When the Tao is destroyed, even the Tai Chi, the foundation of existence, will crumble, not to mention a mere plague. At the end of the universe, the plague is only a part of the destruction, and it will be destroyed by an even stronger calamity. The plague is also life. When all lives perish, the plague will cease to exist. Destruction calamity, slaughter life calamity, kill the plague." Fajing and the others watched as Poyamatsu turned the slaughter life calamity into the silhouette of the Yuan-Tu sword. The sword Qi swept across and slashed towards herself. The Yuan-Tu sword was the sword of slaughter calamity. It symbolized the slaughter of the heaven and earth. Therefore, the power of slaughter life calamity in the Tao of destruction would turn into the silhouette of the Yuan-Tu sword. The essence of the power of plague was an extremely tiny living being, or rather, a strange life force. Under the power of the slaughter life calamity, these tiny living beings were killed instantly. All the diseases on Poyamatsu's body stopped acting up. However, this was equivalent to torturing himself half to death. Originally, he had already recovered the majestic and ferocious appearance of an Asura and his incomparably powerful innate body, but after the backlash of the destructive tribulation power, he had returned to the miserable appearance of a dried corpse. A few strands of Poyamatsu's hair stuck to her scalp like withered grass. She looked terrifying. He used the slaughtering life tribulation to cut down all the plague creatures and used the destruction tribulation power to devour his body. Now, anything that couldn't exist under the 12 destruction tribulations was meaningless to him. Any attack would be destroyed by his destruction essence first. He was extremely weak, but also extremely powerful. Poyamatsu swung her sword and killed the plague energy on the remaining destruction demon disciples along with the millions of ancient plague locusts. Not good. Grandmaster Fajing was extremely nervous. No matter how he looked at it, these remnants of Ro and destruction demon disciples were here to kill them, ready to fight to the death. Who would have thought that these people had made such a big fuss just to catch ants? Who would have thought? In any case, Fajing could not understand. He saw that Poyamatsu only used one destruction calamity to kill millions of ancient plague locusts. The destruction great Tao could suppress all existences. It was infinitely powerful. He did not dare to let Poyamatsu use her full power. Otherwise, Poyamatsu could drag everyone down with her. Purple gold alms bowl. Grandmaster Fajing put his palms together. The purple gold alms bowl floated from his hands and floated behind his head. The mouth of the alms bowl immediately opened, turning into a boundless world. "Junior brothers, lend me a hand." Grandmaster Fajing raised his hands high, lifting the huge purple gold alms bowl. He and the dozens of old monks and ascetics behind him opened their hands together, releasing endless light like a scorching sun. The Buddhist light that could illuminate the world was absorbed by the purple gold alms bowl. The light that could illuminate the entire world was gathered at a focal point. The Buddhist light that was as gentle as the morning sun, after the first change of focus, gathered into a scorching golden torrent. Any dark evil energy that came into contact with this scorching torrent would evaporate. Even if the unparalleled ghost kings or evil beings of the netherworld came out, facing this endless golden torrent of Buddhist light, they would not have any advantage. The golden torrent of Buddhist light changed for the second time, turning into a scorching white, powerful Buddhist light that one could not look at directly, as if it came from the extreme heat of hell. There were a total of 9 scorched structures in the purple gold alms bowl. After the last 9 scorches, the Buddhist light turned into a faint, colorless, indiscernible ray of Buddhist light that pierced through Poya Moqo's heart. In an instant, everything there was vaporized, but Poya Moqo only sneered. "The stronger your arts, the closer I am to the essence of destruction. Move, bald donkey, or I will send you all to the Western Paradise." "What's wrong with seeing my Buddha in the Western Paradise?" Fajing said lightly. "Since the worst result is also a good thing, then this poor monk will risk everything to prevent you all from succeeding. If we die in battle, we will be able to see the revered one of the world. If you all succeed, then it will be the nightmare of all living beings in the myriad worlds. Junior brothers, follow me to slay the demons and defend the Tao." "Ha!" the group of old monks roared in unison. Fajing opened the purple gold alms bowl, and the mouth of the alms bowl suddenly became bigger and bigger in the eyes of the Azura demons. In the end, it covered the entire sky, covering everything. The group of destruction demon followers could not help but fall into the purple gold alms bowl, about to drown in the sea of Buddhist light. At this time, the sea of Buddhist light in the purple gold alms bowl suddenly shook, creating a wave of light. The huge purple gold alms bowl was punched by someone, and the huge purple gold alms bowl flew into the air. The mouth of the alms bowl faced down, sprinkling light rain, causing the Azura demons to squeak, but also allowing the destruction demon followers to struggle out of the purple gold alms bowl. The figure who punched was incomparably majestic. He stood in the void, his body in the hall of enlightenment, like a heavenly pillar above his head. To such a person, the hall of enlightenment was a hall, a heavenly palace. When Fa Jing and the others stood in the hall of enlightenment, they were like ants, but that figure could support the heavens and the earth. Poya Ji. As soon as Fan Wujie and the others stepped into the hall, they saw a powerful figure that emitted an unparalleled aura. It was the body of King Poya, who had knocked the purple gold alms bowl to the ground with a single punch. Great Master Fajing's body trembled violently, and the treasure light of the golden body flew everywhere. Although the punch had landed on the primordial spiritual treasure, the rebounding force still caused their blood and qi to churn, and their bodies to almost shatter. The Buddhists regarded the body as a stinky bag of flesh. Other than ascetic cultivators who used external forces to temper their bodies, making them tough but lacking in spirituality, which in the eyes of the mystic door would definitely damage their bodies and destroy their potential, the other Buddhist cultivators did not train their bodies at all. All of their magical power was stored in the golden body Dharma. Fajing retracted his body and released his own golden body Dharma, which only reached the calf of King Poya's body. His arms were bare as he resisted Poya Ji's punch. The punch that King Poya had landed on the purple gold alms bowl had caused the surrounding mountains to tumble, and the earth to collapse. The whole world was turned upside down, and countless ancient creatures were alarmed. The Taoist monarch and the others who had just stepped into the hall had no idea what was going on. Yuan Yu looked at the changes in the Hall of Translucence with a dumbfounded expression and screamed, "Run! There's more trouble in here!" Fan Wujie did not know what was going on, so he followed behind him and ran. Even though he was busy, he managed to ask, "What's wrong? Don't be fooled by the fight now, you'll have to make a list later. This is the experimental field of the River Styx ancestor, not some random world. How dare they destroy the great Empyrean where the demon ancestor of the River Styx is experimenting? I think they're tired of living," Yuan Yu said in horror. "Who the hell knows what they're going to do? Do they really think this is some public street in the universe? Run! When the monsters in the depths of the Hall of Translucence are alerted, these people are dead." The old demons ran out of the hall in a panic. As soon as they got out, they saw a huge ball crashing out of the Hall of Translucence. Fan Wujie looked up, and it was as if he could see the universe falling. The ball rolled twice, and finally stopped next to the plaque of the Hall of Translucence. When they saw the true appearance of the ball, the hair on the back of everyone's neck stood on end. "King Poya!" the Shui Tu King exclaimed. Something tore off King Poya's head. "Good thing it has more than one head. What the hell happened in there? Even Dara's corpse is damaged. It looks like it was torn apart by force. Tearing Dara with bare hands is terrifying." Clang! There was a loud noise that shook the entire Hall of Translucence. All the old demons were bleeding from their mouths and noses, and nearly half of them vomited blood mixed with dark red internal organs when they heard the loud noise. Then they saw a sturdy purple gold alms bowl being smashed out of the Hall of Translucence by something, smashing through the damaged door of the Heavenly Palace. The sharp-eyed Fan Wujie also saw Fajing and the others hiding in the purple gold alms bowl, looking like they were on their last breaths.